Chapter 983. On the 1st of January, on the night of New Year's Day, Shuyao jolted awake from her sleep. Vaguely sensing that she was about to give birth, she subconsciously kicked Lin Jiej beside her. Lin Jiej, who had been sleeping with his clothes on every night ever since he learned that Shuyao was due to give birth, instinctively leaped out of bed. After confirming that Shuyao was about to give birth, he bent down to carry her and rushed to the hospital through the night. A month before Shuyao was due to give birth, Grandpa Lin had already arranged for a doctor to accompany her. So, by the time Lin Jiej brought Shuyao to the hospital, the doctor was already waiting at the entrance. Under the doctor's help, Shuyao successfully gave birth to a son when the sun rose from the east. Naming was a big deal, so everyone had prepared a name for the new member of the Lin family. However, none of them had expressed their opinions yet. After giving birth, Shuyao took a look at the baby before turning to Lin Jiej and saying, "Can we call him Lin Shi?" Lin from Lin Jiej, and Shuyao from Shi. These were two words that had suddenly flashed across her mind while she was going through the pain of childbirth. She felt that there was no one more suitable to be their child. Shuyao's nonchalant words sent the names that everyone in the Lin family had prepared into the depths of hell. Before anyone could even voice out their names, they had already expressed their approval. 3 years and 6 months later, ever since the start of summer, the weather in Beijing was getting hotter and hotter. The young master of the Lin family, Lin Shi, had recently learned a new skill, writing a diary while listening to a voice. May 28th. My name is Lin Shi, you can call me Little Bomb, because my great-grandfather likes to call me that. You can also call me Baby, because Grandma's son likes to call me that. You can also call me Little Bun, because Grandpa and Grandma like to call me that. You can also call me Little Sweetheart, because Auntie likes to call me that. You can also call me Little Snack, because Mom likes to call me that, of course. You can also call me Little Light Bulb, because Dad always calls me that. I don't know why, every time Dad calls me that, the whole family glares at me. I think light bulb is pretty good. It was invented by the great scientist Edison. It can give off light and heat. When I grow up, I also want to be a person who gives off light and heat. May 29th, I discovered a pattern today. When great-grandpa brings me around, he always asks if I'm full, as if he's afraid that I'll be hungry. When Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt bring me around, they always ask if I'm cold, as if they're afraid that I'll freeze. When Aunt brings me around, she always likes to teach me martial arts, telling me that boys have to cleave a wolf to death with their bare hands and kick a tiger to death. When Mom brings me around, she always likes to change my clothes for me and constantly takes pictures of me, saying whose son is the prettiest. But when Dad brings me around, he never cares about me, only occasionally asking if I'm alive. Chapter 984. June 1st, continuing from yesterday's diary entry, the reason why I like great-grandfather and Uncle Xia the most is because they are the most patient when it comes to accompanying me. Great-grandfather would teach me how to write with a brush, and every time that happens, great-grandfather would become very solemn, but I know that he's doing it for my own good, because Grandma's son told me that great-grandfather taught my father the same thing when he was young. As for Uncle Xia, he's not a part of our family, he's my aunt's assistant. Let me tell you a secret, whenever my aunt takes me out, it's always Uncle Xia who takes me out. Uncle Xia would patiently play games with me, help me learn words, and even teach me to recite Tang poems. Every time I return home, when I tell my family what my aunt taught me today, my family would always praise my aunt. Actually, I wanted to tell them that Uncle Xia was the one who taught me, but Uncle Xia wouldn't allow it. I don't know why. Oh right, today is Children's Day, and I met Uncle Xia again. Uncle Xia taught me a new poem, May One's Heart Be One, Never to Be Parted. I asked Uncle Xia what this poem means, and Uncle Xia said that I'm still young, and I'll know it in the future. It's a poem about love. I asked Uncle Xia what love is, and Uncle Xia said that Jiai. Jiai is my aunt's name. When did my aunt's name turn into love? Sigh, the world of adults sure is complicated. June 2nd, oh right, I didn't finish yesterday's diary entry. I still have a few uncles, and they're not bad either. Uncle Liang likes to bring me to read mangas, but he gets beaten up by my dad every time. Uncle Desolate Years is really good at gaming, but he doesn't teach me how to play, so I don't ask him if he wants any whenever I have candy. As for Uncle Lu, he's actually very handsome, and he always buys me a lot of delicious food. I quite like him, but my mom always criticizes him, so I can only follow my mother's wishes and stop liking him. Oh right, my mom often says to Uncle Lu, "You didn't cherish Leng Wan when she was by your side, and now that she's gone, you want us to accompany you all around the world to fish for fish." What does Leng Wan mean? To accompany you all around the world to fish for fish, does it mean that you've eaten all over the world? I love Haidaleo noodles the most, but they said that children can't eat hot pot, so I've only had one bite. June 3rd, in addition to a few uncles, I also have 2 godmothers. I like my mother as much as I like my godmothers. But my mother told me that I have 3 godmothers. I asked her where the 3rd one is, but my mother didn't say anything. Later, I saw my mother wiping her tears, and from then on, I didn't dare to ask my mother this question again. Oh right, my mother is a middle school teacher, and her students also like me a lot, but I don't think those students are as handsome as I am. June 4th, today, a female student transferred into my class. The teacher told her to sit beside me, and she's really cute. Her eyes are as black as grapes, and when I said that I want to eat your eyes, she cried. Her face is as red as an apple, and when I said that I want to bite your face, she cried again. When I saw that she kept crying, I called her a little crybaby, and she cried again. Then, I was scolded by the teacher. All in all, I remember this little crybaby. Her name is Ling Kiki. Today, when I was showing off my plane to her, I told her that it was a gift from my father, and she actually asked me a really stupid question. What is a father? I said that you don't even know who your father is. You're so stupid. She cried again, so annoying. Chapter 985. June 4th, June 5th, June 6th. In the blink of an eye, it was already June 28th. Lin Shi had been persisting in writing a voice diary for an entire month now. June 28th was Lin Jiai's birthday. Lin Shi loved it when someone at home celebrated their birthday. This was because every time someone celebrated their birthday, he would be able to eat his favorite cake. Usually, no one would give him cake because it was to protect his teeth, even though he felt that his teeth were pretty tough. Thinking about how he would be able to eat cake at night, Lin Shi woke up in joy. After breakfast, before heading to kindergarten, he hid himself in the cupboard in his bedroom and began recording his voice diary on his phone. Yesterday, the crybaby cried again. The reason was because she had 5 RMB in her pocket. I took it away and told her that I was saving it up for her when she grows up so that she can give the money to her as her dowry. After class, I went to buy snacks, but because I didn't have enough money in my pocket, I used up 50 cents of the 5 RMB that the crybaby kept. After that, the crybaby started wiping her tears, saying that I was lying to her. I told her that I wasn't lying to her, that I was seriously helping her with her dowry. When she grows up and marries me, the money for her dowry will still be mine. I'm just spending a little bit of it in advance. I don't think I'm wrong, but after hearing those words, the crybaby cried even more fiercely, saying that she doesn't want to marry me. Depressing, what's wrong with me? I think I'm pretty good. I have a beautiful mother, an amiable great-grandfather, and grandparents and aunties who dote on me. It's just that my father isn't too reliable. I think it's my father who has dragged me down. It's so tiring to be a child. Right, it's my aunt's birthday today, so I wish my aunt a happy birthday. Lastly, I hope that my aunt will get married soon. This is Grandma's wish. Grandma has already grown 3 strands of white hair over this matter. Now that I think about it, it's really tiring for the elderly and children. After saying all that he wanted to say, Lin Sure replayed the voice recording once more. After confirming that there were no problems, he put his phone away. Before climbing out of the cupboard, he thought for a moment before picking up his phone and changing his password. Then, with a heavy heart, he carried his backpack and headed to kindergarten. In the afternoon, when he was playing games, Len Keek's double Diao Shu, however, this time, it wasn't Lin Sure who was crying. It was Len Kiki who was playing with her toys when she was harassed by a boy. Then, the two of them started fighting. When the boy grabbed a plastic toy block to throw at Len Kiki, he was blocked by Lin Sure, who saw this scene from the side. Then, the plastic block landed on Lin Sure's ear, causing him to bleed a little. After seeing the blood, Len Kiki burst into tears. At first, Lin Sure thought that the pain was nothing. He looked at Len Kiki proudly and said, "I'm fine." Len Kiki pointed at his ear and stammered for a long time. Then, with a sobbing tone, she said, "Blood, blood." Lin Sure stretched out his hand and touched his ear. He saw a little red dot on his fingertip. Then, he, who had fainted since he was young, blacked out and fell to the ground. Chapter 986. Zhang Xiaoyu was the boy who had a disagreement with Len Kiki. After hearing this, Zhang Xiaoyu was so scared that he started crying. Then, the originally peaceful kindergarten children all started crying at the same time when they saw the fainted Lin Sure. When Lin Sure woke up, he was in the kindergarten school hospital. Beside him stood the crying little crybaby and a very beautiful, big sister. Lin Sure blinked his eyes and asked, "Big sister, are you the new school doctor?" When the big sister heard Lin Sure's words, she giggled, "No, I'm Keek's mother. You should call me Auntie. Coco's mother." When Papa saw Mama's mother, he was especially respectful, so, "Hello, Auntie, my name is Lin Sure. You can call me Xiao Sure or Snack. That's what my mother calls me. You can also call me Little Light Bulb. That's what my father calls me. My mother is a teacher, and my father runs his own company. I also have my great-grandfather, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, great-aunt, great-grandmother. They all work in the company founded by my grandfather." Hearing Lin Sure's introduction, the big sister looked at him with a complicated expression, as if surprised and pleasantly surprised. After a while, she asked, "What's your mother's name?" Lin Sure's family had told him not to reveal his family's affairs to strangers, but after some thought, he realized that Keek's mother couldn't be considered as a stranger. Rather, she could be considered as one of his family. Thus, he replied honestly, "My mom's name is Sure Yao." The big sister looked at Lin Sure with a much warmer gaze. She even reached out and patted Lin Sure's head. Then, she handed all the snacks she had prepared for Len Kiki to Lin Sure. "Auntie, thank you for saving Kiki." Lin Sure's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw so many snacks. However, he was still very reserved and only took a piece of chocolate. "Auntie, you're welcome. Mom told me that I must help my classmates. Also, I don't need so many of these snacks. I only need one. It doesn't matter. These are all for you. You can keep them and eat them slowly." Hearing Mother Keek's words, Lin Sure nodded like an adult. "All right then, I'll do as you say." Big sister was amused by the string of words that came out of his mouth. Lin Sure also laughed. Then, as if he had thought of something, he tilted his head and asked, "Auntie, will I be disfigured?" "My dad said that he caught up with my mom because of his good looks." Big sister smiled again. She reached out and patted Lin Sure's head again. No, you'll be fine. If you're really disfigured, I'll marry Kiki to you. Lin Shi immediately beamed with joy. Okay. Ling Kiki, who was standing at the side, seemed to be stunned when she heard this. She widened her eyes and looked at her mother, then at her temporary assistant. Then, she started crying again. She cried the most heartbroken she had ever cried. I don't want. Soon, the homeroom teacher appeared at the kindergarten's clinic. Kiki's mother had some matters to attend to, so she took Kiki with her. About 10 minutes after the door to the school nurse's office was closed, it was suddenly pushed open. Lin Shi. 1 hour. Chapter 987. Uncle Lu. Lin Shi greeted Lu Benlai calmly before turning his attention back to the snacks Kiki's mother had prepared for him, ignoring the latter's inspection of him. After he was done devouring the pile of snacks, he raised his head to look at Lu Benlai, who was drenched in sweat from rushing over from the entrance, and his breathing was still a little unstable. Thus, he asked, Uncle Lu, why are you here? Where are my parents? Your father received a call from his teacher, and he heard that you had fainted. Then, he received a call from your mother, and she said that her car was restricted, so she asked your father to pick her up to attend your aunt's birthday banquet. So, your father asked me to come to your school to check on your condition and bring you to your aunt's birthday banquet, and your father went to pick your mother up. Hearing Lu Benlai's explanation, Lin Shi replied with an "Oh." As expected, parents are true love, and the baby was just an accident. Lu Benlai burst into laughter. Where did you learn all of these theories from? Lin Shi looked at Lu Benlai as if he was looking at an idiot. Uncle Lu, this is a popular saying on the internet. Don't you know? Are you living in the previous century? Let me tell you, the great Qing has already fallen. Lu Benlai, while packing his bag, Lin Shi added, if great-grandpa, grandpa, and grandma find out that daddy treated me like this today, I'm sure that he'll be flamed one after another. Forget it, I'll let him off this time. But Uncle Lu, it's really worrisome to have such a father. On the other hand, Lu Benlai was rendered speechless for a moment. Then, he picked up Lin Shi and left the school grounds. On the way to Lin Ji's birthday banquet, Lin Shi told Lu Benlai about Kiki's mother. Uncle Lu, I met a really beautiful auntie today. I really like her, but I like her daughter even more. Her daughter is called Little Crybaby. Upon hearing the words Little Crybaby, Lu Benlai turned to look at Lin Shi and asked, what is it? Oh, Uncle Lu, Little Crybaby is the name I gave to Kiki. Her real name is Ling Kiki, and she's 3 years old this year. Lu Benlai suddenly stepped on the brakes. Lin Shi leaned forward to look at Lu Benlai and asked, Uncle Lu, what's wrong? Lu Benlai remained silent. Little Lin Shi continued, Uncle Lu. Uncle Lu. Recovering from his daze, Lu Benlai replied with an "oh" before stepping on the accelerator once more. Although he seemed to be staring intently at the road ahead, his mind was in a mess. It was truly rare to see someone with the surname Lang. In all these years, Lang Nguyen was the only one with the surname Lang. And now, it turned out that one of Lin Shi's classmates was Lang Kiki. Lang Kiki. Kiki. Back then, he had chatted with Lang Nguyen about it. He liked the name Kiki, but it was a pity that he was a man, so he couldn't use it. If they had a daughter in the future, he would name her Kiki. However, he thought that perhaps he was too sensitive, or perhaps he missed her too much. As such, when he heard the name Lang Kiki, the first thought that popped into his mind was, could Lang Kiki be Lang Nguyen's child? Chapter 988. Come to think of it, it should have been 4 years since she left him, right? 4 years. Over 1,000 days and nights, he had been thinking of her and looking for her, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. He couldn't find her no matter how hard he tried. China World Hotel, Beijing. Xie Shangzhou had been busy preparing for Lin Jia's birthday banquet since noon. Take this purple thing away. She hates this color the most. Remove this lilies as well. Remember, don't put lilies in places where she will appear. She doesn't like the smell of lilies. She finds it pungent. Try to maintain the original taste of this dish. Don't add too many condiments. She likes the original taste of this dish. When the dishes are served, this dish must be placed closest to her. She likes to eat it. And this winter shade skill soup, it must be placed next to her. She doesn't like to eat it, but this soup is good for her body. If it is placed next to her, she will drink a little. Help me hold this blanket first. There's a lot of air conditioning here at night, so it will definitely get cold. She needs it. Help me keep this pair of flats. Remember to pass it to me right after the banquet is over. Also, I want piano music. She likes piano music. Did you put almonds in the cake? She likes to eat. Remember to cut down on soy sauce in all the dishes. She's been whitening recently, and due to her recent trip to the beach, she got tanned. She said that she wants to nurse it back to its original state, so she doesn't want to touch soy sauce anymore. Oh, Anne. Xie Shangzhou was just about to continue when he paused for a moment. I've forgotten about it. Let me think of something first. The manager of the World Hotel Beijing, who was next to Xie Shangzhou, wrote down the details one by one. He couldn't help but half-jokingly say, Mr. Xia, you've always been so concerned about Miss Lin. Those who don't know would think you like Miss Lin. Hearing those words, Xie Shangzhou burst into laughter as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. You should know that she's the boss, so of course I have to lick her boots. The manager replied with a few, yes, before retreating back to his work. After confirming that there was no one around him, the smile on Xie Shangzhou's face vanished, and a hint of sorrow surfaced in his eyes. Was it really that obvious? It seemed that in the past year, he had heard more and more similar words. However, he had never dared to expect anything from her. He treated her well because he liked her. With such thoughts in mind, Xie Shangzhou walked out of the Beijing World Hotel and headed to a nearby supermarket. There, he picked out a pack of sanitary pads, which was Lin Jia's favorite. Just now, he wanted to ask the hotel manager to prepare it for him, but when the words were on the tip of his tongue, he realized that it was a private matter and not appropriate. These 2 days were her period. She would never prepare these things in advance. Lin Jia's birthday banquet was set for 7 p.m. But it was already 7:30, and Lin Jia still hadn't appeared. The entire family tried calling Lin Jia one after another, but no one picked up. It was already 8:00, but Lin Jia was still nowhere to be seen. Since Lin Shi was here, it was impossible for them to go hungry. Old Mr. Lin instructed everyone to start eating. But Xie Shangzhou wasn't in the mood to pick up his chopsticks. He discreetly called Lin Jia several times, but he was still unable to reach her. Thus, while no one was paying attention to him, he left the Beijing World Hotel and drove to look for her. Chapter 989. Xie Shangzhou searched through all of the places that Lin Jia liked to visit, the places that she frequented, and the places that she might visit, but he was still unable to find Lin Jia. Along the way, other than calling Lin Jia a few times, Xie Shangzhou also called Lin Jie. He learned that Lin Jie and the others hadn't been able to contact Lin Jia while he was away, and Lin Jia hadn't appeared at his birthday banquet either. As it was already very late, Lin Jie told Xie Shangzhou that they were preparing to leave. Before hanging up the call, Lin Jie could tell that Xie Shangzhou was overly anxious, so he consoled him by saying that Lin Jia would be fine. Even if someone were to harbor evil intentions, the one who would be in trouble would be the one who would be in trouble. Lin Jiaj even added that the fact that Lin Jiai's call was able to get through to him could only mean one thing: Lin Jiai didn't want to answer his call. If something had really happened, she would have been the first person to get through to him. Xie Shangzhou knew that Lin Jiaj was right, and he knew that the security in the capital had always been good. Even in the dead of the night, it was unlikely that anything would happen. However, he still felt an inexplicable unease in his heart, as if something huge had happened tonight. After hanging up the call with Lin Jiaj, Xie Shangzhou sat in his car for a while. Thinking that he wouldn't be able to fall asleep even if he were to return home, he decided to give it a try and drive along the dark streets of Beijing to see if he could find Lin Jiai or not. Perhaps the heavens had seen his sincerity, or perhaps he was just lucky, but when it was nearing 11:30, just as Xie Shangzhou was thinking about giving up on returning home if he still couldn't find Lin Jiai, he suddenly saw Lin Jiai at the entrance of a clubhouse. She was wearing a black dress and a pair of high heels. Standing by the roadside, she would glance at the entrance of the clubhouse from time to time, as if waiting for someone to come out. It was summer, so it wasn't cold at night. However, it seemed like she had been standing there for too long in her high heels that her feet were starting to feel uncomfortable. She was constantly changing her posture, and from time to time, she would even bend over to massage her calves. Upon seeing this sight, Xie Shangzhou immediately stepped on the brakes without any hesitation. He unbuckled his seatbelt and quickly jumped out of the car. Without even calling her name, he ran to the back of the car, opened the trunk, and took out a pair of comfortable slippers. He pressed the lock on the trunk and grabbed his slippers. Just as he was about to make his way over to Lin Jiai, he saw Lin Jiai, who was pacing back and forth at the entrance of the clubhouse, suddenly looking as if she had seen a great ray of hope, and her eyes lit up. Chapter 990. Qin Ting. Isn't he dead? Why would he appear here, alive and well? Lin Jiai told him that Qin Ting had died in a travel accident, and his corpse was nowhere to be found. Could it be that Qin Ting wasn't dead at all back then? Could it be that the two of them had lost contact? It was no wonder Lin Jiai wouldn't pick up her phone, even ignoring her birthday. It turned out that he had appeared. While Xie Shangzhou was still in shock, Lin Jiai had already walked up to Qin Ting and stopped him. Qin Ting. He wasn't too far away from her, so he could hear her voice clearly and feel the trembling in it. I'm trying my best to maintain my composure, but I still can't hide the agitation in my heart, can I? Qin Ting halted his footsteps and stared at Lin Jiai in bewilderment. Before Qin Ting could say a word, one of the people around him, President Qin, who had worked with the Lin family enterprise in the past, recognized Lin Jiai, and upon seeing her, he immediately spoke up. Ms. Lin, what a coincidence. You're here too. President Qin turned to Qin Ting and asked, Mr. Qin, so you're acquainted with Ms. Lin? Ms. Lin. Qin Ting finally spoke up. That's right, she's the daughter of the Lin Corporation, Lin Jiai. The most famous project of my company is a collaboration between Boss Lin and me. Mr. Qin, why didn't you tell me earlier that you know Boss Lin? If you had told me earlier, I would have already considered working with you for the sake of Boss Lin. As for the project you mentioned tonight, I'll get my people to evaluate it when I get back. President Qin was delighted to see that everyone here was acquainted with him, and he chattered on for a long time. Then, as if recalling something, he glanced at Lin Jiai before turning to Qin Ting and remarked in bewilderment. But now that you mention it, I'm really perplexed. Mr. Qin, given that you're so close with Ms. Lin, why didn't you consider her first? Qin Ting didn't respond to President Chen's words. Instead, he turned to Lin Jiai. His dark eyes assessed Lin Jiai for a moment before asking, Ms. Lin, may I know if we know each other? President Qin was dumbfounded upon hearing Qin Ting's words. Ah. You don't know each other. I don't know you. How does Boss Lin know your name? Hearing those words, Lin Jie pursed her lips. Ignoring President Chin, she stared fixedly at Qin Ting and continued, "You went to university in America. You are the only child of Shandong province. You grew up in Shanghai. Your birthday is August 24th. You are 31 years old this year. Your English name is Aaron. When you were 19 years old, you had an accident while traveling in September. When you woke up, you were in the hospital, right?" Following Lin Jie's words, the astonishment on Qin Ting's face grew deeper and deeper. Miss Lin. How do you know so much about it? Did you and I really know each other? And very close. Lin Jie didn't respond to Qin Ting's words. Instead, she continued asking, "It's fine if you don't remember Lin Jie, but do you still remember Estelle?" Qin Ting seemed to be trying hard to remember. After a while, he shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I really don't remember." Chapter 991. You also bought a pair of rings with Estelle. It's silver, and it's not worth much. You bought it by the roadside, and it's this pair. As Lin Jie spoke, she took out a very old ring from her bag and said, "The female one is with me, and the male one is with you. Do you remember?" Qin Ting took the ring from Lin Jie and examined it carefully. Then, as if racking his brains, he finally shook his head and said 3 words to Lin Jie, "I'm sorry." Hearing those 3 simple words, Lin Jie's eyes nearly reddened in an instant. However, as there were others around, Lin Jie held back her tears. She calmed herself down for a moment before asking, "Do you really not remember anything?" Qin Ting shook his head once more, and he apologized once more, "I'm sorry." But this time, he didn't give Lin Jie a chance to speak. He immediately said, "Miss Lin, I'm really not too sure what you're talking about, but I'm glad to have met you. I still have other matters to attend to later, so if there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave first." After saying those words, Qin Ting returned the ring in her hand to Lin Jie and shot her a polite smile before walking around her and leaving the area. The others also greeted Lin Jie, but as Lin Jie ignored them, they found an excuse to disperse after standing by the side of the road for a while. Soon, Lin Jie was the only one left by the roadside. She stood blankly on the spot, staring at the ring with her head lowered. Qin Ting's car was parked by the roadside, and the man closest to him opened the car door for him. After he got into the car, he walked around the car and got into the driver's seat. Before the car drove off, Qin Ting turned around and looked at Lin Jie through the car window. But soon, his phone rang in his pocket. Retracting his gaze, he took out his phone and took a look at the caller ID before answering the call. "Honey, why aren't you asleep yet?" "Me? I just finished a business meeting, and I'm about to return to the hotel. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. My flight is in the afternoon, and I'll accompany you for dinner tonight." Sleep early, good night." After hanging up the phone, his secretary, who was driving, asked, "Chairman Qin, was that madam?" "Yes," Qin Ting replied as he put away his phone. The secretary drove the car for a while and then asked, "CEO Qin, do you really not know that Miss Lin?" Qin Ting didn't reply. Through the car window, he stared at the night view that was constantly passing by, and after a long while, he replied, "I don't remember." "That's a pity, the young mistress of the Lin Enterprise. If you still remember, our company will definitely be able to survive this crisis." Qin didn't say anything else, and the car fell into silence. Qin Ting stared out the window, her fingertips sliding across the phone screen from time to time. Chapter 992. In truth, marrying the daughter of a wealthy family wasn't a bad thing, especially for someone like him who came from an ordinary family. It would save him many years of hard work. However, the good times didn't last long. His wife's company had been on the decline for the past few years, and this year, it was already on the brink of collapse. The reason why he came to Beijing this time was to pull in investments. If he couldn't pull in any more investments, there would only be one outcome for his company: bankruptcy. In truth, he was quite surprised to meet her today. It was fortunate that President Qin had revealed her identity before him. Lin Jiayi was a huge company, one that he didn't even dare to dream of working with. Even now, Lin Jiayi still remembered him and kept that worthless ring on her finger. Most probably, she still had him in her heart, just like what his secretary had said. If he could get to know Lin Jiayi, he would be able to tide over this crisis. Yes, it was him, but it was just him alone. It wasn't him and his wife. After all, how could a company on the verge of collapse compare to the flourishing Lin family enterprise? With such thoughts in mind, Enchanting suddenly spoke up. Right, don't tell anyone about what happened to Miss Lin today, especially not to Madam. Fearing that his secretary would overthink things, Enchanting added, Madam gets jealous easily. If she learns of this matter, she might cause a ruckus. It's fine if it's others, but it's best not to provoke those from the Lin family enterprise. Hearing those words, the secretary immediately spoke up. President Qin, you're right. Even though we can't work together now, it doesn't mean that we can't work together in the future. If Madam were to offend Miss Lin out of jealousy, we might really lose the chance to work together. He doesn't remember me. He actually doesn't remember me. I've loved him wholeheartedly for 11 years, but he actually doesn't remember me anymore. An indescribable pain and discomfort pressed down on Lin Jiayi's chest, leaving her breathless. As if a fool, she stood by the side of the road in a daze. She didn't know how long she had been standing there until a gust of cold wind blew. She shivered slightly and slowly came back to her senses. She stared at the ring on her finger for a while, and the more she stared at it, the more sore her eyes became. She raised her head and looked at the sky, forcing back the tears that were about to fall. She then put the ring away and turned to leave. In the end, when she turned her head, she saw Xie Shangzhou standing behind her. He was holding a bottle of mineral water in one hand and a pair of slippers in the other. Paired with his neat and tidy suit, he looked comical no matter how one looked at him. But looking at Xie Shangzhou in such a state, Lin Jiayi was taken aback for a moment before her heart suddenly felt at ease. She didn't know when it started, but Navigator was becoming more and more like a man. He was no longer the little boy she had picked up from university. He would always ask for her opinion when something happened, and he would run away when she was angry. She didn't know when it started, but there were a few times when she would always see him behind her whenever she turned around. While Lin Jiayi was still in a daze, Xie Shangzhou walked up to her and placed the slippers in front of her. Take off your slippers. Lin Jiayi had been standing there for too long, so she nearly fell as soon as she raised her feet. Xie Shangzhou immediately supported her, and after she managed to steady herself, he walked up to her back and squatted down. Sit on my back and take off your slippers. It'll be safer this way, and you won't fall. Chapter 993. Lin Jiayi turned her head to look at Xie Shangzhou. She hadn't paid much attention to it in the past, but for some reason, memories of the past kept flashing through her mind. She suddenly realized that there were many times when she was changing her shoes that Xie Shangzhou would squat behind her and act as a chair for her to sit on. She couldn't remember exactly when this started, but it felt like it had been a very, very long time ago. Seeing that there wasn't any weight pressing down on his back, Xie Shangzhou couldn't help but turn his head around out of curiosity. Before his gaze could reach Lin Jiayi's upper body, Lin Jiayi had already recovered from her daze. She quickly retracted her gaze and sat on his back before bending down to change her shoes. After she changed into her shoes and stood up, she said to Xie Shangzhou, "Thank you." It was a simple word, but it caused Xie Shangzhou, who was just about to stand up, to freeze on the spot. Roughly half a minute later, as if nothing had happened to him, he straightened his back. However, his fingers, which were twisting the cap of the mineral water bottle, were still trembling slightly. "Thank you. I know very well where I stand in her heart. I know that I'm just an employee, a subordinate, an existence who should serve her. But today, she actually thanked me." It was just 2 simple words, but it left me feeling satisfied for a very long time. After calming himself down, Xie Shangzhou walked up to Lin Jie and passed the bottle of mineral water to her. "Miss Lin, have some water." After Lin Jie took the bottle from him, Xie Shangzhou bent down to pick up the high heels that Lin Jie had changed out of. "Miss Lin, I'll send you home." After drinking half a bottle of water, Lin Jie twisted the cap back on before turning to look at Xie Shangzhou. Xie Shangzhou didn't know what he was panicking about, but he instinctively averted his eyes to avoid her gaze. She replied with a very soft, before walking over to his car, which was parked by the roadside. Xie Shangzhou heaved a sigh of relief. He hastened his footsteps and opened the car door for her. After getting into the car, Xie Shangzhou fastened his seatbelt and asked, "Miss Lin, are you returning to the old manor or your own place?" "Let's return to my own place." "All right." After a pause, Xie Shangzhou continued, "It's your birthday today. You didn't go to your birthday party, and your family has been waiting for you for a long time. They've also called you many times. If you're not going back to the mansion, give them a call so that they won't worry about you." After a moment of contemplation, Xie Shangzhou felt that Lin Jie must be feeling awful after bumping into Enchanting today. If she were to call back to the old manor, she would surely be lectured by the elders of the clan. Thus, he added, "Why don't I give the old manor a call right now?" "All right." After hearing Lin Jie's reply, Xie Shangzhou picked up his phone and gave the old manor a call. "Hello, Old Master Lin. I'm Xiao Xia. Yes, I found President Lin. She's not feeling well." It's fine. You don't have to come and see her. I'll send her back to rest." Listening to the conversation between Xie Shangzhou and her grandfather, Lin Jie's thoughts drifted away once more. Chapter 994. But it was fortunate that she had the GPS with her, so he was able to shield her from it most of the time. After hanging up the phone, Xie Shangzhou turned to look at Lin Jie and said, "I lied that you were sick, and the old master was quite worried about you, so I don't think he'll pursue the matter anymore." Lin Jie nodded her head and fell silent. Xie Shangzhou also tactfully chose not to speak anymore. It was very quiet in the car. Lin Jie leaned against the back of the car and closed her eyes to rest. Xie Shangzhou considerately lowered the volume of the radio and raised the temperature of the air conditioner a little. Then, he looked straight ahead and focused on driving. When they passed by a traffic light, Xie Shangzhou suddenly felt bored, so he looked left and right, and eventually, his gaze fell on Lin Jie's reflection in the rearview mirror. Come to think of it, it seemed to have been 6 years since the first time he met her. Over the past 6 years, the passage of time hadn't left a single mark on her. She was truly a woman blessed by the heavens. Even the heavens favored her so much. With such thoughts in mind, Xie Shangzhou couldn't help but curl his lips into a smile as he stared at Lin Jie. But soon, the red light turned green, and Xie Shangzhou quickly reined in his thoughts and focused on driving once more. When they were about to reach the entrance of Lin Jie's neighborhood, Lin Jie opened her eyes. She stared out the window thoughtfully for a while, then broke the silence in the car. "Navigator," Xie Shangzhou replied with an "I met Enchanting today. After working together for so long, they had gained a better understanding of each other's personalities." Lin Jie would often bring up her worries to Xie Shangzhou. The reason for this was simple. Xie Shangzhou was a man of few words, and he would listen attentively to her words. Once she was done, he would forget everything that she had told him. No one else knew about it, so she trusted him. But he doesn't remember me anymore. But I'm really happy that he's still alive. Xie Shangzhou, who had witnessed the meeting between her and Qin Ting with his own eyes, pretended not to know anything as he listened to her story. Navigator, I was actually quite sad when he didn't remember me, but now that I think about it, it's better than never seeing him again in this lifetime, isn't it? Tell me, now that I'm meeting him, is God moved by me? This must be a chance given to me by God, right? So it's not important that he doesn't remember me. As Lin Jiayi spoke, she suddenly called out to Xie Shangzhou, Navigator. Can you do me a favor? Xie Shangzhou, who had been listening to her all this time, finally spoke up. Go ahead. I haven't contacted Qin Ting for many years. I don't even know what he's doing or where he's staying. The only thing I know is that he's in Beijing. He's with President Chen tonight, so President Chen must have his contact details. Maybe he knows which hotel he's staying at. Can you help me ask President Chen? Also, can you help me make an appointment with Qin Ting tomorrow? I want to see him again. After hearing Lin Jiayi's words, Xie Shangzhou silently tightened his grip around the steering wheel, but there wasn't much of a change in his expression. He waited for her to finish her words, and 3 seconds later, he finally replied with a calm and unhurried tone, all right. Chapter 995. Lin Jiayi and Xie Shangzhou fell silent once more. Soon, the car stopped below Lin Jiayi's apartment. Xie Shangzhou got out of the car and opened the door for Lin Jiayi. Just as Lin Jiayi was about to enter the apartment, she suddenly recalled something and turned around to look at Xie Shangzhou. Don't forget about my matter. Xie Shangzhou knew that Lin Jiayi was referring to the matter of contacting Qin Ting. He tried his best to maintain his composure as he nodded at Lin Jiayi. I remember. Lin Jiayi waved her hand and walked into the elevator without saying a word. By the time the elevator doors closed, Xie Shangzhou's eyes were filled with deep sorrow. He stood at the bottom of the building for a very long time until he saw that the lights in Lin Jiayi's apartment were already turned on. He knew that she had entered her apartment, so he returned to his car and drove away from her neighborhood. He drove along the quiet street in the middle of the night. After driving for some distance, he suddenly braked and stopped the car by the side of the road. He picked up his phone and searched for Chief Chen's number. He stared at the screen for a long while before he eventually dialed the number. Very soon, the call was picked up, and Chief Chen's familiar voice sounded from the other end. Assistant Xia, why did you suddenly call me? Xie Shangzhou exchanged a few pleasantries with Chief Chen before getting to the point. It's like this. I called you to ask for a person's contact information. His name is Qin Ting, but I'm not too sure about his situation. Alright, thank you. I received your message. Also, can I ask you one last thing? Do you know where Mr. Qin lives? Oh. The apartment next to Second Ring Road, right? Alright. Thank you so much. I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free. Goodbye. After hanging up the call, Xie Shangzhou tapped open the message Chief Chen had sent him. He stared at the 11 digits for a moment before sending a message over. Hello, Mr. Qin. I'm Xie Shangzhou, Lin Jiayi's assistant. Chief Lin would like to meet you tomorrow night. May I know if you're free? Roughly a minute after the message was sent, Xie Shangzhou received a reply from Qin Ting, yes. Following which, Qin Ting sent another message, may I know where to meet? Instead of replying to Qin Ting's words, Xie Shangzhou sent a screenshot of their conversation over to Lin Jiayi's WeChat. 5 minutes later, Xie Shangzhou's phone lit up. It was a call from Lin Jiayi. Navigator, he agreed to it. That's great. Let's meet at the Peking Hotel tomorrow. When I was in America with him, I said I would take him there for a meal when I had time, but I never had the chance. cancel all my itineraries for tomorrow night. No, cancel all my itineraries after 3 p.m. Also, tell the manager of the Peking hotel to prepare the freshest seafood in advance. Enchanting likes it a lot. Also, let's meet at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Remember to ask them to open that bottle of good wine that I saved. Lin Jia had been talking to Xie Shangzhou for a very long time now, and when she noticed that Xie Shangzhou had gone silent, she asked, "Navigator, are you listening?" "When I was here, I was listening. Do you remember everything I said?" "Got it. Is there anything else?" "I might have to work overtime on the weekends." Isn't the matter of poaching me over? Why are you always teasing me?" Okay, I'll contact you this weekend." 4 years ago, Mr. Zhang was the one who had tried to poach him. In the end, he did not manage to poach him. Instead, the two of them became good friends. Occasionally, on the weekends, Mr. Zhang would invite him for afternoon tea or something. He called him just now because he wanted to have coffee with him on the weekends. He said that when he worked overtime on the weekends, Mr. Zhang laughed at him and said that it would have been great if he had jumped to his company earlier. He could be an executor and fish in troubled waters at any time. Yet, Mr. Zhang laughed at him and said that he really loved Lin Corporation. Everyone thought that he loved Lin Corporation, but they didn't know that he only loved one person in Lin Corporation. It was a pity that she already had someone else in her heart. Chapter 997. The next afternoon, before 3:00, Lin Jia stopped her work and had Xie Shangzhou send her to a nearby shopping mall. She had a VIP card at the beauty salon in the shopping mall, so she would come here for a spa session whenever she was free. Most of the time, it was Xie Shangzhou who booked the rooms for her. Today was no exception. While Xie Shangzhou was booking a room for her, Lin Jia was strolling around the shopping mall downstairs. After receiving Xie Shangzhou's call, Lin Jia grabbed the spoils of war she had just bought and headed upstairs. After Lin Jia entered the beauty salon, Xie Shangzhou didn't wander too far away. Instead, he found an empty seat in the cafe on the 5th floor of the shopping mall and ordered a cup of black coffee. After which, he took out his laptop and began helping Lin Jia with her unfinished work in the company. Xie Shangzhou set an alarm, and an hour and 50 minutes later, his alarm rang. He quickly saved the things he had just finished on his laptop before packing up his things. After calling for the waiter to pay the bill, he stood up and headed to the beauty salon downstairs. He waited at the entrance for roughly 10 minutes before Lin Jia walked out under the escort of the president of the beauty salon and her caregiver. For an instant, Xie Shangzhou couldn't recognize the woman standing before him. Her usual waist-length curly hair was straightened and hung softly at the back of her head. As she had to meet many clients every day, her face, which always had makeup on, was now devoid of any adornment. Her clean and fair skin was so tender that she didn't look like a 30-year-old person at all. Instead, she was wearing a white lace shirt, a simple black skirt, and a pair of white flats. She looked youthful and beautiful. At first glance, she looked like an inexperienced university student who had just walked out of school. In Xie Shangzhou's mind, Lin Jia was a flamboyant, wanton, seductive, and radiant woman. He had never seen her in such a simple and elegant manner before, as clean as a piece of white paper that hadn't been dyed in the world. Xie Shangzhou was so stunned that he didn't even notice Lin Jia walking up to him. "How is it? Do I look good?" Lin Jia asked as she spun around Xie Shangzhou gracefully. Recovering from his daze, Xie Shangzhou's gaze lingered on her face for a few seconds longer before he nodded and replied, "You look good." "Do you look good this way or usual?" "Both. I knew you'd say the same thing if I asked you." "Forget it, I won't make things difficult for you. However, I'm sure Enchanting will like my outfit." When he confessed to me, he told me that the first time he saw me was because I was wearing a white shirt and a black skirt. That was how he noticed me. Xie Shangzhou didn't say a word. With a smile on his face, he took the clothes from Lin Jiayi's hands and changed the topic. Boss Lin, it's about time for us to set off. If we delay any longer, the traffic will surely get worse, and you might end up being late. Lin Jiayi nodded her head in agreement. Chapter 998. After which, Lin Jiayi asked, Navigator, how tall are you? 185. Oh, that's really quite tall. You're taller than Enchanting by 5 centimeters. I'm wearing high heels, so I'm around the same height as Enchanting. When I was in high school, I was already 1.7 meters tall. Back then, I wanted to find a man who was at least 1.85 meters tall, and your height was one of my goals back then. Navigator, to tell you the truth, I used to despise Enchanting for being too short. When they arrived at the elevator, Xie Shangzhou made use of this opportunity to not respond to Lin Jiayi's words. As he pressed the elevator button, he thought to himself, even if he doesn't meet your initial requirements, he's the one you like. Even if I meet your initial requirements, I'm the one you don't want. So, no matter how bad he is, I'm still envious of him. After sending Lin Jiayi to the entrance of China World Hotel, Xie Shangzhou got out of the car, and when he opened the car door for her, he said, I'll wait for you in the car. Let me know when you're done, I'll pick you up at the entrance. After getting out of the car, Lin Jiayi replied to Xie Shangzhou with a, all right. Just as she was about to enter China World Hotel, a thought suddenly occurred to her, and she turned around to look at Xie Shangzhou. You should go eat first. I won't be done anytime soon anyway, so don't just wait in the car. Xie Shangzhou nodded and agreed to it. It was only after Lin Jiayi's silhouette disappeared from the entrance of China World Hotel that he opened the car door and got into the car. He parked the car at the entrance of a tea house by the side and ordered some food before switching on his laptop. As he ate, he typed on the keyboard, finishing up the unfinished work that he'd helped her with earlier in the afternoon. Every time he finished any work, he would take a look at the time. 30 minutes had passed since she entered China World Hotel, peaking. 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. For some reason, it felt like an eternity had passed. It wasn't that he didn't have any work to do, but he just couldn't help but feel as if every minute felt like a year. 2.5 hours after Lin Jiayi entered China World Hotel, Xie Shangzhou finally finished the rest of her work for the day. It was already 9 o'clock, and his phone was quiet. She hadn't called him to pick her up at the door. With nothing to do, time became even more difficult to pass. Xie Shangzhou stared out the window in a daze, then he stared at the computer screen in a daze. No matter what he was thinking about in the beginning, he ended up thinking about how she was with Enchanting and whether they were having a good time. When it was almost 10, Xie Shangzhou finally received a message from Lin Jiayi. Like a prisoner released from prison, he let out a sigh of relief. Then, he quickly packed his things and drove to the entrance of China World Hotel Beijing. A second after he parked the car, he saw Lin Jiayi and Enchanting walking out of the elevator through the glass window of the revolving door. She didn't know what the two of them were talking about, but she smiled happily. Xie Shangzhou instinctively averted his gaze away. It was only after they had walked out of the revolving door that he got out of the car and walked to the back seat to open the door for Lin Jiayi. Lin Jiayi waved goodbye to Enchanting before climbing into the car with a bright smile on her face. After Xie Shangzhou closed the door, he nodded politely at Enchanting and got into the car. Chapter 999. Reflexively, Xie Shangzhou took out a tissue and passed it to the back seat. After Lin Jiayi took the tissue, he adjusted the temperature in the car a little higher. After which, he took a blanket from the front passenger seat and passed it to her. Lin Jai took the blanket and wrapped it around herself before saying, "The air conditioning in the Beijing World Hotel is really too cold. It's freezing me to death. My entire legs are cold." While driving, Xie Shangzhou replied, "You'll feel much better after taking a bath. I'll buy you a cup of hot tea when we pass by a cold drink shop later on." Lin Jai was clearly in a good mood, and she spoke a lot more than usual. "Navigator, I've realized that you're becoming more and more like a homebody. In the past, I always thought that you were just a little brat, but it seems like you're becoming more and more like a man now. You're so considerate and considerate. Whoever marries you will surely be blessed." "Oh right, Navigator, you're not young anymore, are you? Haven't you met a girl you like yet? Didn't you say that you were still chatting with the junior whom I introduced to you 2 years ago? What happened after that? Is there no after that? What about that Miss Zhang who came after? She's pretty and capable. Why, you don't like her either?" Wait for me then. I'll look for another one for you in the near future." Xie Shangzhou didn't turn down Lin Jai's willingness to matchmake him. Instead, he replied with an "Navigator, Qin Ting has really lost his memory. He doesn't remember me anymore, but he doesn't seem any different from before. When he saw me today, he said the exact same thing he said to me back then. Do you think that counts? No matter how many years have passed, the feeling I give him is still the same. Navigator, Qin Ting is leaving tomorrow. He's working for a small company, and I've never heard of it before. However, he'll be coming to Beijing next week." The car was silent, and Xie Shangzhou quietly listened to Lin Jai's recount of what happened between her and Qin Ting that night. Even though he didn't really want to hear it, he didn't interrupt her. On the afternoon of the same day, Liu Benlai went to meet the president of a bank. By the time they ended their conversation, it was already 6 in the evening. Liu Benlai noticed that the weather was exceptionally good today, so when the driver drove him past G University, he suddenly had a sudden urge to ask the driver to let him down. After which, he asked for the car keys and got the driver to knock off early. Even though he had stayed in Beijing after graduation, he had been too busy. He hadn't returned to G University for quite some time. Now that he was back, the layout was no different from when he was still in school. However, some of the school buildings had been renovated and were much newer. Liu Benlai was a little, and he didn't care about his expensive suit. Instead, he sat down casually before he too and he had to, made, and stared at, and said, "I Shan," and said, and he, and Liu. And Zhang Ji University was huge, and Liu Benlai was feeling a little tired after walking around the campus. Thus, he found a spot on the field and casually sat down, ignoring the expensive suit he was wearing. After which, he began staring at the students playing basketball not too far away. Liang. Liu. Lin Liu. He while later, he. Chapter 1000. Who's playing a prank on me? Liu Benlai frowned. He stood up in displeasure and turned around to take a look. There, he saw an adorable little girl dressed in a pink dress. She was hugging a teddy bear, and she was looking at him with her head tilted upward. The fire in his belly was instantly extinguished by the little girl's gaze. He stared at her for a moment before realizing that there weren't any adults around. He quickly looked around, but other than students, there wasn't anyone else around. It can't be that some family's little girl got lost, can it? Liu Benlai pondered for a moment before squatting down. With the calmest voice he could muster, he asked, "Little girl, where are your parents?" The little girl seemed a little timid. She stared at him for a moment, and after confirming that he wasn't in danger, she finally asked, "Daddy." "What is that?" Perhaps the little girl really didn't know what a daddy was, but she looked at him innocently, waiting for his answer. Seeing the anticipation in the little girl's eyes, Lu Benlai suddenly felt a little heartache. Could it be that this little girl came from a single-parent family and didn't have a father? Is that why she's asking such a question? Lu Benlai pondered for a moment before asking, "What about your mother?" The little girl shook her head. "I can't find her." "All right, it's really as I thought. She got lost." The adults in this little girl's family must be panicking right now, right? With such thoughts in mind, Lu Benlai said, "How about this, little girl? I'll bring you to the nearest police station to look for the police officer, all right?" The little girl shook her head once more. "The police officer can help you find your mother." The little girl shook her head once more. Lu Benlai frowned. If she didn't want to follow him to the police station, what if she cried and threw a tantrum? What if someone thought that she was a human trafficker? But he couldn't possibly go to the police station alone and leave her here, could he? Should he call 110? Just as Lu Benlai was trying to come up with a solution, the little girl suddenly reached out and took out a tag from her neck. She raised it to Lu Benlai's face. Lu Benlai took a look at the tag and saw an address and phone number written on it. Clearly, her parents had given it to the little girl so that she wouldn't lose it. Lu Benlai took out his phone and dialed the number on the tag. It rang many times, but no one answered. Seeing that the sky was gradually darkening, Lu Benlai took a look at where the little girl lived, and it wasn't too far away from G University. Thus, he said, "Uncle will send you home to look for your mother, all right?" The little girl seemed to be studying something. She stared at Lu Benlai for a moment before nodding her head lightly. With a childish voice, she replied, "All right." Lu Benlai's heart softened in an instant. He stood up, intending to bring the little girl to the address, only to realize that the little girl wasn't moving at all. He stared at her in bewilderment for a moment, and just as he was about to ask her what was wrong, she suddenly extended her arms toward him, asking for a hug. A 3-year-old baby couldn't walk anymore. What else could he do? Lu Benlai bent down and picked up the little girl. The little girl was very light, and her body was soft. As soon as she fell into his arms, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. Following which, the little girl wrapped her arms around his neck, and the soft and warm sensation made Lu Benlai's heart warm up once more. Lu Benlai froze on the spot for a moment before carrying the little girl to the address. It didn't take long for Lu Benlai to find the little girl's house. He pressed the doorbell, and soon, anxious footsteps sounded from within. Chapter 1001. Not too long later, the door opened from the inside. The one who walked out was a middle-aged woman. Upon seeing the little girl in Lu Benlai's arms, she immediately rushed over and yelled, "Little darling, where did you run off to? Do you know how anxious I was? I've been looking for you for half a day now." Upon seeing the middle-aged woman, the little girl immediately let go of Lu Benlai's neck and opened her arms to the middle-aged woman. With a cute voice, she called out, "Grandma, little darling, you mustn't do this in the future. If you run out without saying a word again, Grandma will really get angry. When your mother comes back, I won't care if she scolds you." The middle-aged woman took the little girl from Lu Benlai's arms as she continued to talk to the little girl. The little girl shook her head and said, I don't want Mommy to scold me." As she spoke, she kissed the middle-aged woman on the cheek and said, "Hello Grandma, Grandma, Grandma." The little girl probably didn't know how to speak that much, and even when she acted coquettishly, she could only utter a few words. However, it was more than enough to soften the middle-aged woman's heart, and the anxious expression on her face softened. However, the middle-aged woman still pretended to be angry and said to the little girl, "You're not allowed to do that in the future." After the little girl nodded obediently, the middle-aged woman turned to Lu Benlai and said, "Sir, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing little darling back." "You're welcome." Lu Benlai raised his wrist to take a look at the time. It was about time for the video conference he had to attend, and he was in a hurry to get back. Without wasting any time with the middle-aged woman, he said, "Since I've brought the child back, I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave first. Let me send you off." The middle-aged woman said as she walked over to the elevator and pressed the button for Lu Benlai. Just as the elevator was about to reach the elevator, the middle-aged woman turned to the little girl in her arms and said, "Little darling, say goodbye to Uncle." The little girl obediently waved her hands at Lu Benlai and said in a tender voice, "Goodbye, Uncle." Those 4 simple words melted Lu Benlai's heart. He instinctively raised his hand and gently stroked her head. In truth, he didn't really like children, but for some reason, he just couldn't help but feel an inexplicable urge to get close to this little girl. His hand lingered on her head for a moment before he reluctantly smiled and said, "Little friend, goodbye," before retracting his hand and entering the elevator. After the elevator door closed, the middle-aged woman carried the little girl home. "Darling, Granny will take you to wash your hands first." With that, the middle-aged woman closed the door behind her and carried the little girl to the bathroom. However, before she could take 2 steps, the living room door that had just been closed not long ago was knocked on again. "Auntie! Auntie!" Through the door, the little girl's eyes immediately lit up when she heard the voice coming from outside. "Mommy!" Then, she twisted her body, slid down from the middle-aged woman's arms, and ran to the door. She was short, so she tried her best to tiptoe, but she couldn't reach the doorknob. In the end, a middle-aged woman rushed over and helped her open the door. Chapter 1002. Lenkiki immediately lowered her head and said, "Mommy, I was wrong. It's like this every time, but you don't listen to me. Mommy, I'm really in the wrong," Lenkiki said as she snuggled into Leng Wan's embrace. She raised her head and kissed Leng Wan's face. "Mommy, don't be angry. Mommy is pretty, Mommy is pretty." Seeing that Leng Wan wasn't going to hug her, Lenkiki buried herself deeper into her embrace. "Mommy, I love you." "Mommy," unable to stand it any longer, Leng Wan sighed helplessly. She reached out to carry Lenkiki, and as she stood up, she didn't forget to reason with the latter, "Kiki, if you're going out in the future, you can ask Granny to accompany you. If you go out alone, you'll definitely run into bad people. If that happens, you won't be able to see your mother anymore, understand?" When Lenkiki heard the words "I won't be able to see my mother again," her eyes immediately turned red. Large droplets of tears fell from the corners of her eyes. "No, I want my mother, I want my mother." "Then you're not allowed to run around alone in the future, understand?" I know. Lenkiki sobbed as she hugged Leng Wan tightly. After entering the bathroom, when Leng Wan was bathing Lenkiki, she noticed that the latter was holding onto a golden cufflink. That was something only men would use. Leng Wan frowned. "Kiki, where did you get this thing from?" Lenkiki stretched out her fair and tender little hands, playing with the water as she replied, "Uncle." "Uncle." Even though Kiki had only said 2 words, Leng Wan knew what she was trying to convey. Since she was young, Kiki had always liked to grab shiny things. If she wasn't mistaken, this cufflink must have been worn by the man who brought Kiki home. The man probably didn't even notice when Kiki reached out to grab it. However, judging from the style and brand of this cuff, it was obviously expensive. Such an expensive thing had to be returned eventually. With this thought in mind, Leng Wan placed the cufflinks into her pocket before bending down to help Kiki wash her hands. After dinner, Leng Wan played with Kiki for a while before coaxing her to sleep. Leng Wan read Snow White thrice before Coco finally fell asleep. After covering Kiki with the blanket, Ling Wan tiptoed out of the bedroom. Little darling is asleep. When the auntie saw Ling Wan coming out, she immediately poured her a glass of water. Ling Wan replied with a soft as she took the cup of water. After drinking half a cup, she suddenly recalled the cufflink and raised her head to ask the auntie, "Did the man who sent Cuckoo home today call you?" She was busy at work, so the auntie was the one who took care of Kiki. Most of the phone. Hearing Ling Wan's words, the auntie immediately picked up her phone to take a look. There's a missed call. It should be from the man who sent Nan Nan back in the afternoon. However, I was downstairs looking for Kiki at that time, so I didn't receive his call, after which, the auntie turned to Ling Wan and asked, "Do you want it? Pass it to me." Ling Wan put down the cup of water, picked up her phone, and jotted down the phone number that the auntie had given her. Chapter 1003. By the time he got home and finished his video conference, it was already 11 at night. Lu Benlai took a hot shower to wash away his fatigue before opening a bottle of red wine. He sat on the sofa in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and stared at the night view as he slowly sipped on his wine. Before he knew it, he had already drunk half a bottle of wine. He poured himself another glass of wine and took a sip. Then, he reached out and pulled out his personal cell phone. Entering WeChat, he tapped on the lemon that he had pinned at the top. The entire page was filled with messages that he had sent her. He scrolled up the screen until his fingertips were aching, but he didn't see a single reply from her. He knew that her message would only appear on the screen if he scrolled back to 4 years ago. Yet, he continued scrolling until he saw her reply from 4 years ago. Only then did he tap into the chat box and start typing. "Nuan Nuan, I swiped the screen 350-47 times today before I saw your reply. Nuan Nuan, you've been away from me for 4 years, 1 month, and 3 days. Nuan Nuan, do you still remember? 5 years ago today, we went to eat hot pot together. It happened to be your summer break that day, so we went shopping together after eating hot pot. I bought you a beautiful dress. Nuan Nuan, did you have a good day today?" I was still the same. I woke up at 8 in the morning and arrived at the office at 9. I was busy the entire morning, and in the afternoon, I met the president of a bank. Seeing that the weather wasn't bad, and I happened to be passing by G University, I decided to go for a stroll. G University hasn't changed much from before. Wherever I go, it's as if I can see your shadow. Oh, that's right, I met an especially beautiful and obedient little girl today. She got lost, so I sent her home. Nuan Nuan, I've said so much, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Perhaps you won't be able to see it, but you might be able to see it, but you'll just ignore me after you see it. Nuan Nuan, I miss you, but I don't know if you'll miss me. Nuan Nuan, I'm sorry. I can't even remember how many times I've apologized to you. Nuan Nuan, it's been 1,460 days since you left, but I'm still waiting for you. Nuan Nuan, I believe that our story is not finished yet. One day, we can say long time no see. Staring at Ling Wan's WeChat, Lu Benlai muttered to himself for a long time before finally exiting WeChat. He tapped open his contacts and searched for Ling Wan's phone number. He had lost count of how many times he had dialed it. The reply he got was still the same: "Sorry, the number you have dialed is not available." In fact, one day, this sentence became, "Sorry, the number you have dialed does not exist." However, the next day, he asked his assistant to register this number at the business office. He worked hard to preserve all of her things because he hoped that one day, she would come back and everything would go back to how it was before. After putting down his personal phone, Lu Benlai gulped down another half a cup of wine before whipping out his phone. There were a few unread messages. 2 of them were advertisements, 2 of them were from partners, and 1 of them was from an unknown number. Chapter 1004. I've already sent the little girl home safely. Is the little girl's family contacting me to express their gratitude? In truth, Liu Benlai didn't think there was a need for that. After all, it was just a simple gesture from an ordinary person. If it had been anyone else, he might have ignored such a message. However, the little girl he saw in the afternoon was simply too adorable and likable. Liu Benlai pondered for a moment before replying, "Yes, I am." It was already past midnight. Liu Benlai thought that the person who had sent him the message would have already gone to bed and wouldn't be replying to his message for the day. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that a second after he put down his phone would ring with a ding-dong. Picking up his phone, he saw that it was a message from an unknown number. "Sir, I'm sorry to disturb you. It's like this, when I was washing my daughter's hands today, I noticed a cufflink in her hand. It looks like it's quite expensive, so can you give me your address? I'll send it over to you." When he returned home and was changing his clothes, he realized that he had lost a cufflink. He thought that he had accidentally dropped it on the floor. But in the end, it turned out that the little girl was the one who had snatched it away. However, he didn't want strangers to know too much about him. After pondering for a moment, Liu Benlai recalled that he had an appointment in the Rose Garden tomorrow night. Thus, he replied, "I happen to be having dinner near your neighborhood tomorrow night. If it's convenient, can you deliver the cufflink to my restaurant?" "Sure, but I might have to work overtime." "How about 8:30? "Sure. I'll contact you tomorrow night then." Upon seeing this, Liu Benlai didn't respond to the other party's message. The next day, at 8 a.m. sharp, Liu Benlai was woken up by his alarm. The first thing he did when he woke up was to brush his teeth while sending Lang Nuan a WeChat message. "Good morning, Nuan Nuan. Nuan Nuan, the weather in Beijing is great today. I wonder where you are and if the weather is good. Nuan Nuan, remember to eat breakfast. I'm going to work now. It was another busy day." Liu Benlai's original plan was to have an appointment that night, but plans couldn't keep up with the sudden changes. Liu Benlai had to go on a business trip, and his flight was at 9 p.m. that night. He returned home at 6 a.m., hastily packed a few clothes, and rushed to the airport. On the way to the airport, he kept answering the phone. When he arrived at the airport, he finally didn't have to make a phone call, but he had to go through a series of check-in procedures. When he entered the VIP lounge, he finally had some free time. At 8:30, the flight attendant reminded him that it was time to board the plane. Just as Liu Benlai was about to leave the VIP lounge with his briefcase in hand, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang. He took out his phone and took a look at the caller ID. It was an 11-digit number, and it looked a little familiar. However, Liu Benlai wasn't able to match it to the number. Liu Benlai tapped on the screen and answered the call. After which, he placed the phone to his ear and said, "Hello." There was no sound from the other end of the line. Liu Benlai waited for a moment before replying with another "hello." This time, he added a few more words, "Hello, may I know who you are?" There was still silence on the other side of the phone. Through his phone, Liu Benlai could hear the sound of cars passing by, as well as the occasional honks. He frowned. Seeing that the other side was still silent, he spoke again, "I'm sorry." Chapter 1005. He frowned, but seeing that there was still silence on the other end, he spoke up once more, "I'm sorry. The remaining, may I know who you are?" "Why aren't you speaking?" Before Liu Benlai could finish his sentence, the other party had already hung up on him. Just like that, the words that Liu Benlai was about to say got stuck in his throat. Hearing the do-do-do-do tone from his phone, he couldn't help but feel a little flustered. Seeing that Liu Benlai wasn't moving, the air stewardess walked over and reminded him, "Mr. Liu, it's about time for you to board the plane." Recovering from his daze, Liu Benlai put his phone away and began making his way to the boarding gate. However, after taking 2 steps, he suddenly paused. For some reason, he felt that there was more to that call. After a moment of contemplation, he took out his phone and gave the other party a call. After the call was connected, it rang many times, but no one answered. Liu Benlai frowned, and the uneasiness in his heart intensified. After contemplating for 2 seconds, he made another call. This time, the call went through, but unlike before, there was no one picking up. Instead, there was a response very quickly, but the other party had already hung up. It was one thing for the other party to remain silent after picking up the call, but when he called the other party didn't pick up either. What was the meaning of this? Liu Benlai wanted to make a third call, but before he could touch his phone screen, a notification popped up on his screen. It was from the unknown number that had called him earlier. "Hello, sir. I'm here to deliver the cufflinks to you. May I know which compartment of the restaurant are you in?" Upon seeing this message, Liu Benlai suddenly realized why he found this number so familiar. It turned out to be the mother of the little girl whom he had sent home yesterday. He had arranged to meet her at the entrance of the restaurant, but he was simply too busy today. After going on an abrupt business trip, he had been busy answering calls non-stop, so he had completely forgotten about this matter. Liu Benlai quickly replied, "I'm sorry, but I have to go on an abrupt business trip today, so I won't be able to meet you." "Is that so? If it's convenient for you, can you give me an address so that I can mail it to you? Or perhaps you have another contact, I can deliver the cufflinks to them." Liu Benlai was the one who had decided to meet Zhang Xian tonight, but he was the one who had broken the appointment. He felt a little embarrassed, so Liu Benlai pondered for a moment before replying, "It's the weekend tomorrow. Are you at home? If you're at home, I'll ask the driver to pick it up at the entrance of your neighborhood. That way, it'll save you some trouble. What do you think?" "All right." Liu Benlai didn't respond. He lifted his feet and continued to walk towards the boarding gate. After walking for a short distance, his phone rang again. It was a message from the little girl's mother. "When your driver comes tomorrow, ask him to contact this phone number. This is my auntie's phone number. I promised my daughter tomorrow that I would accompany her to Ocean Park, so I won't be at home. However, I gave the cufflinks to my auntie at home. She's always available." Liu Benlai wasn't in a hurry to reply. Instead, he briefed his driver on the situation, and after the driver informed him of the approximate time he would be heading over tomorrow, he sent a message to the little girl's mother, "The driver will be there at around 3 in the afternoon tomorrow." Chapter 1006. It was only after Liu Benlai boarded the plane that he saw the message. He replied with, "It's fine," before switching off his phone. At the same time, at the entrance of the rose garden, Ling Wan felt her phone vibrating, and she subconsciously unlocked the screen. When Ling Wan saw that he only replied after a long while, "It's fine," she finally couldn't hold herself back, and her eyes reddened. She had recognized who he was from the very brief "hello" she had heard from him on the phone. She thought that after such a long time, the people she should have forgotten and the things she shouldn't have remembered were all just a dream to her. But when he suddenly appeared in her world again, she realized that in life, there would always be such a person. You thought you had long forgotten him, but in reality, he was still deeply hidden in your heart, and it was even more deeply rooted. She wondered what kind of man would send Coco home. Judging from the cufflinks, he should be a successful man. She also thought that a person who could wear such expensive accessories had to be a middle-aged man who loved children. But never in her wildest dreams could she have imagined that the person would actually be him. Just from his voice alone, she was able to recognize him. Lu Benlai. Lu as in Lu Benlai, Benlai as in, there's nothing in the world, where does dust come from? Lu Benlai. There were a total of 19 strokes of these 3 words. Lu Benlai, Ling Wan's thoughts didn't manage to make their way into her mind. Like a fast-forward scene in a movie, the memories of the past suddenly flashed across her mind like a storm. Recently, Shuyao had been finding all kinds of snack wrappers in Lin Shi's pocket. Once or twice, Shuyao thought that Lin Shi might have bought them himself, but as the number of times increased, she gradually realized that something was amiss. After all, the allowance Lin Shi had in his pocket wasn't enough to pay for so many snacks. Lin Shi was only 3.5 years old, so there shouldn't be any major problems. However, Shuyao was still a little worried that Lin Shi might have used some underhanded means to steal snacks from the other children in the kindergarten. So, she asked the kindergarten teacher for an explanation, and the result was that other than his deskmate Lin Kiki, who made him cry every day, Lin Shi didn't seem to have any other problems. Unable to understand the situation from the teacher, Shuyao decided to find a time to have a heart-to-heart talk with Lin Shi. Shuyao had to attend classes, and she was quite busy as well. Thus, she found a weekend to do so. However, before she could have a heart-to-heart talk with Lin Shi, she first had to get rid of him, who would surely cause trouble if she were to spend too much time with her son. The reason Shuyao used was, "Hubby, I want to eat jellies, potato chips, popcorn, fruit candies, lollipops, preserved fruits, candied plums, crispy noodle snacks, biscuits, bubble gum, chewing gum, puffed snacks, creamed melon seeds, peanuts, walnuts, toffee, sesame paste, wangzai milk, broad beans, orchid beans, pistachios, walnut kernels, almonds, hazelnuts, beef jerky, pork cubes, grilled fish fillets, seaweed, shredded squid, shrimp sticks, raisins, figs." At the end, Shuyao added, "The reward for buying these things is a kiss." Chapter 1007. After Lin Jiej left, Shuyao headed straight to Lin Shi's room. Pushing open the door, the first sight that greeted Shuyao was little Lin Shi lying on the bed, holding onto his charging phone, watching a short video. "Munchkin, didn't I tell you not to look at your phone all the time? You'll damage your eyes. If you continue like this, I'll confiscate your phone. You promised me that I could look at my phone for 10 minutes a day, but I've only been looking at it for 2 minutes now. I have a timer, so it's unreasonable for you to confiscate my phone just like that. Secondly, you've remembered wrongly. You didn't say that I shouldn't look at my phone all the time, you said that I shouldn't place a charged phone next to my pillow because it'll explode. I've thought about it for a long time, and I've come up with a solution. Look, I've thrown my pillow on the floor, and my phone is so far away from it that it won't explode. Thirdly, your medical knowledge isn't good enough. As long as you maintain a certain distance from your phone, your eyes won't get damaged. Those who get damaged eyes are just not used to it. If I don't pay attention to my sitting posture while reading books every day, my eyes will still get damaged. In summary, you can't blame your phone for damaged eyes." Shuyao was rendered speechless by Shuyao's words. She was the one who came here to have a heart-to-heart talk with her son, so why was she rendered speechless by her son before they even started? Speaking of which, who did her son inherit his powerful logical thinking skills from? Alright, I'll apologize to you. However, your eyes haven't recovered yet, so you shouldn't look at your phone too much, got it? I got it, Mom. You've already said those words 346 times. Shuyao was rendered speechless once more. To be so sensitive to numbers from a young age, just who did she inherit this from? Mom, why aren't you saying anything? I'm wondering whose child you are. Mom, I know that I'm your child. When I was young, I was fooled by you too, telling me that my mother was a rock in my great-grandfather's courtyard. Back then, when you were cleaning up the rocks, I hugged the rock and called out, "Mommy," telling you not to touch me. That's all in the past. I can only blame myself for being too young to understand your tricks, but you can't fool me anymore, Xiao. We can't have a heart-to-heart talk anymore. What should I do? What did he mean by it was in the past? Was it appropriate to use the word past for a 3.5-year-old child? Also, too young. Are you that old now? Xiao decided that it was better to cut to the chase and not waste her time on her son. In any case, she wouldn't be able to outlast him. So, she adopted the posture of a mother and looked at Lin Shi sternly. "Snacks, tell me honestly. What's going on with the packaging of the snacks in your pocket? Where did it come from? Is it from?" "Mom, I didn't steal it from the kids. I don't want to steal from them." Xiao was silent for a moment before asking, "Why did you say that it's beneath your dignity to snatch a child's belongings? Didn't Mommy tell you to be friendly with your friends?" Chapter 1008. Xiao. Where did you inherit such a proud and arrogant personality from? Xiao, then where did your snacks come from? Lin Shi's eyebrows shot up proudly as he replied, "My mother-in-law gave them to me." Lin Shi's reply nearly caused Xiao to fall to the ground. Little Snack liked to watch videos on the internet and had a good memory, so he had a photographic memory of many things. Then, he would say a string of things, shocking the adults in the family until they were speechless. Thinking that it was some kind of joke, Xiao asked, "Tell me, where did you learn that joke from?" Seeing that his mother didn't believe him, little Lin Shi immediately put on a stern expression and gazed at Xiao with a serious expression. With a childish voice, he said, "Mommy, it's not a joke. It's the truth. My snacks were all given to me by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law really likes them. Do you know what mother-in-law means?" "I do. It's my wife's mother." Xiao. "Oh no. The person before me isn't a 3.5-year-old son but a 30-year-old son, right?" Before Xiao could calm herself down and speak, little Lin Shi continued, "Mommy, I know what you're going to ask next. Do you know what a wife is?" "I do. A wife is a grandmother to a grandfather, a mother to a father, a great-aunt to a young master, and a great-aunt to Uncle Xia." "Great-aunt to Uncle Xia. Sis Jai to Xia Shangzhou." Xiao couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Little Snack, you're right at the start, but you're wrong at the end. There's no relationship between your great-aunt and your Uncle Xia, so don't try to matchmake them." "Mommy, what do you mean by matchmaking them?" "It means that people who aren't husband and wife are forced to be husband and wife by you." As she spoke, Xiao realized that her son had diverted the topic, so she quickly returned to the main topic. "Little Snack, I'm not here to discuss this with you. I'm asking about your snacks. Mommy, why don't you believe me? They were really given to me by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law really likes me. The first day she met me, she gave me all of the snacks in her bag. She even told me that if I were to be disfigured, she would betroth Kiki to me, and I agreed to it. So, Mommy, you must remember that I'm different from my aunt. I'm no longer a single dog. Please don't drag me into it when you talk about my aunt in the future. Look at you, Lin Jie, you're not even married yet. You only have Lin Shi as a single dog at home." Xiao. I feel like beating my son. What should I do? Xiao, even if Keek's mother likes you, there's no need for her to give you snacks every day, is there? Hearing those words, Lin Shi also felt that it made sense. He tilted his head to the side and pondered for a moment, but he still couldn't make sense of it. "I'll ask my mother-in-law why she's treating me so well when I meet her tomorrow. But Mommy, Kiki doesn't have a father, So I want to give my father to Kiki to be her father. Hearing those words, Yao's heart nearly stopped beating. He's her husband. What right does he have to make such a decision? What do you mean by giving Kiki to be her father? Suppressing the urge to throw Lin Shi out, Yao continued listening to her son's words. Also, Mommy, I've noticed a very strange problem. Kiki's mother has the same surname as Kiki, so why do I have the same surname as Daddy? I want to have the same surname as Mommy too. Also, Kiki's mother's name doesn't make sense. Her name is Ling Wan, so how can she be Nguyen and Wan be Ling? Chapter 1009. Also, Kiki's mother's name doesn't make sense. She's called Ling Wan. How can she be called Nguyen when she's cold, and how can she be called Ling when she's warm? Ling Wan. Upon hearing this oddly familiar name, Yao's expression suddenly froze. She didn't even pay attention to what little Lin Shi was mumbling to himself after that. Ling Wan. Ling Wan. These two words, she would always bring them up whenever she chatted with Jiang Yu and he Tian. Without waiting for little Lin Shi to finish his words, Yao suddenly rushed up to her son, squatted down, and looked him in the eye before asking once more, Snack, what did you just say? What's the name of Kiki's mother? Ling Wan. Kiki told me about it. As little Lin Shi spoke, he picked up a bag of snacks by the bedside and stuffed it into his mouth. Right, Mommy, Kiki's mother asked me about your name too. She even asked me if you're good, and when I told her that you're good, she smiled and said something along the lines of, as long as you're good. Shaolin's casual words caused Yao's fingertips to tremble slightly. She reached out to grab a few snacks from her son's hands and stuffed them into his mouth before asking, other than what Kiki's mother said to you, what else did you say to her? Have you told her about our family situation? Mommy, I told Kiki's mother that you're a teacher, and that Daddy runs his own company. I also told her that great-grandpa, 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 great-aunt, 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 and great-aunt all work in the company Grandpa founded. After hearing those words, Yao's fingertips trembled even more violently. There were countless names in the world, and it was inevitable that there would be many people with the same name. However, she was certain that the Ling Wan her son was talking about was the Ling Wan she was looking for. Nguyen must have recognized him after hearing Snack's words, and that was why she asked him who his mother was. Most likely, it was because she knew that Lin Shi was her son that Nguyen would give him snacks every day. In order to prove her conjecture, she asked, Snack, were you the one who told Kiki's mother about our family situation first before she asked you who I am? How could Lin Shi possibly know what Yao was plotting? Hearing her question, he immediately recalled that Yao had warned him not to speak of his family situation to others. Thinking that his mother was trying to settle the score with him, he immediately lowered his head and admitted his mistake obediently. Mom, I was wrong. I was just trying to leave a good impression on Kiki's mother, so I accidentally spilled the beans. I know that I shouldn't have said such things to strangers, but I won't do it again. It's really Nguyen. It's really Nguyen. It's been 4 years since she left without saying goodbye on the day of her wedding. I finally found her. Yao's heart suddenly started beating furiously. Seeing that his mother wasn't saying a word, little Lin Shi rolled his eyes and admitted his mistake once more. Not forgetting to defend himself, he said, Mom, I was really wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Mom, Kiki's mother is my mother-in-law now, so she's not a stranger anymore. Please don't be angry anymore. Yao, who wasn't listening to Lin Shi's words at all, waited for her emotions to calm down before reaching out to touch her son's face. Snack, I'll send you to kindergarten tomorrow morning. Chapter 10:10. He did something wrong, but not only did his mother not reprimand him, she even insisted on sending him to kindergarten and kissing him. Could there be some kind of conspiracy behind all of this? Little Lyncher rolled his dark eyes around. Determined to appear more obedient, he immediately said, "Mommy, I'm going to take a bath. I'll wash my socks on my own. I don't need you to read me a bedtime story today, I can sleep on my own. Also, I thought about my phone, and I don't think it's good for my eyes, so I won't look at it anymore." As she spoke, Kobayashi flipped over and rolled from the bed to the floor. Then, she got up and slipped into the bathroom. Watching Little Snack's adorable back as he fled, Shiryao couldn't help but chuckle. He was such a bootlicker, and his survival instincts were off the charts as well. Soft. Cowardly. Early the next morning, Shiryao pulled Kobayashi out of bed. Throughout the entire process of Shiryao helping Kobayashi wash up and get dressed, Little Snack's eyes remained glued to the bed. The kindergarten started at 8. And before it was even 6, Shiryao had already stuffed Little Snack into the car and headed to the kindergarten. Little Lyncher was the only child in the kindergarten, and Shiryao couldn't care less about how pitiful he looked being left alone in the classroom. She shoved him into the hands of the principal and left. However, Shiryao didn't really leave. Instead, she found a spot slightly further away and sat in the car, staring at the entrance of the kindergarten. About 45 minutes later, parents came to send their children into the park one after another. Shiryao stared intently at the parents lining up at the entrance, afraid that she would miss a single one of them. At around 7:45 minutes, she saw a familiar figure carrying a little girl off the bus and rushing toward the entrance of the kindergarten. Even though it had been many years since they last met, even though she could only see their backs, and even though everyone had changed their hairstyles and dressing styles over the years, Shiryao could still tell with a single glance that it was the Langmuan she was looking for. Earlier that morning, the auntie was feeling a little unwell. After waking up, Langmuan first prepared breakfast for Kiki before heading to the nearby pharmacy to buy some medicine for the auntie. After returning, she fed Kiki breakfast and sent her off to the kindergarten 20 minutes later than usual. She was afraid that if she took a taxi, the traffic would be so bad that she would be late for work after dropping off Kiki, so she took the bus instead. Since it was the morning rush hour, there were a lot of people on the bus and it was extremely crowded. She had to take care of Kiki and steady herself at the same time, so when she got off the bus, she was already sweating. When they arrived at the bus stop in the vicinity of the kindergarten, Langmuan got off the bus. Seeing that they were already in a rush, she quickly picked Kiki up and ran toward the entrance of the kindergarten. After handing Kiki over to the principal, even though Langmuan was in a hurry to get to work, she still patiently bent down to wave goodbye to Kiki. After Kiki entered the kindergarten, she turned around and walked toward the side of the road. She wanted to hail a taxi to go to the company, but just as she reached the roadside, before she could stand still, someone called her name from behind, "Nuan Nuan." That familiar voice, that familiar tone, it was as if someone had struck Langmuan's acupoints, causing her to freeze on the spot. After about a minute, she heard her name again. Nuan Nuan. Before Langmuan could even turn around, her eyes had already reddened. Chapter 10-11. In the instant that Langmuan and Shiryao's gazes met, both of them could see tears welling up in the depths of the other's eyes. Neither of them had any intention of saying a word. They simply stared at one another quietly. As they stared at one another, a stream of tears suddenly fell from the corner of Shiryao's eyes. Feeling the moisture on her cheeks, Shiryao subconsciously curled up her lips. In the instant that she smiled, Langmuan lowered her gaze and smiled as well. At the same time, tears also fell from the corner of Shiryao's eyes. Finally, Langmuan got into Shiryao's car. She sat beside her in the car for a long time, and both of their eyes were still red. Yao Yao, Nuan Nuan, both of them spoke at the same time, but after hearing the other's voice, they fell silent. It was very quiet in the car. After about 10 seconds, the two of them moved their lips again as if they had agreed to it beforehand. Nuan Nuan, Yao Yao, both of them paused for a moment. Both of them thought that if this went on, they would probably sit for the entire morning without saying anything. Thus, they immediately followed suit. You first, for the third time in a row, Shi Yao and Lang Nuan spoke at the same rhythm, and the two of them couldn't help but chuckle at the chemistry between them. But this time, Shi Yao didn't say a word. Lang Nuan waited for a moment, and she knew that Shi Yao was using her silence to tell her to speak first. Thus, she moved her lips and finally managed to complete her sentence. Yao Yao, how have you been all these years? Hearing those simple words, Shi Yao's eyes reddened once more. What do people look forward to the most when they're apart? Nothing more than for her to appear before you one day and ask you with her own mouth. How have you been? Look at you. How old are you? Your child is already so big, yet you're still crying. Lang Nuan teased Shi Yao, but her eyes were even redder and redder than Shi Yao's. You have the cheek to talk about me. Look at yourself, aren't you still the same? You're still crying. Shi Yao retorted bluntly. Her tone and expression were reminiscent of when they were still in university. With just a single glance, Lang Nuan couldn't help but tear up once more. As she wiped her nose, she said, I'm fine. I just really miss you. I'm afraid that you're not doing well, and I'm afraid that you'll be bullied by others. You're really too much. You didn't even tell us what happened and just left without saying a word. Do you know how long we've been searching for you after you left? There were so many gatherings we had, and that silly Tian couldn't hold her liquor, but she still insisted on drinking. Every time she got herself drunk, she would call out your name. Back then, we promised that we'd be together after graduation, so how could you go back on your words? You left without even leaving us a single message. Also, Jiang Yu. Every time she went out to play, just like in university, she would return with a gift. Even though she couldn't find you, she would always buy 4 of them. Chapter 10-12. Nuan Nuan, I'm telling you right now, I really don't want to forgive you. Shi Yao grumbled through gritted teeth a second ago, but in the next second, she grabbed Lang Nuan's hand, as if afraid that the latter would disappear at any moment. Nuan Nuan, just this once. Just this once, all right. Shi Yao's gentle tone made the tears in Lang Nuan's eyes flow even more fiercely. Yao Yao, I didn't do it on purpose, I know everything, but we were just worried about you. We were afraid that you wouldn't have anyone to talk to when you went to work alone. We were afraid that you wouldn't be able to find someone to talk to when you got home from work. We were afraid that you wouldn't be able to eat your fill. However, it's all in the past now. You won't be alone anymore. If you're sad, happy, or want to eat, you can look for me. If you think that I'm not enough, I can bring my entire family to accompany you, as long as you don't mind the 2 of us. We were afraid that you wouldn't be able to eat your fill. Hearing these familiar words, Lang Nuan couldn't help but feel nostalgic. Shi Yao, it's been so many years, but you're still the same. Lang Nuan tried her best to sound as relaxed as possible. Where are Tian and Ye? Are they doing well? What are they doing? Tian opened a flower shop, and Ye managed to become the team leader in the company. Right, Tian got married to Desolate Year 2 years ago. Not too long ago, Tian got pregnant, and she's currently vomiting terribly. Every day, she would complain in the group chat that she's going for an abortion. If she knew that I've seen you, she'd definitely be overjoyed. Also, Liang Jisi and Ye are nearing their wedding, and their story is a little complicated. Liang Jisi was going to marry a woman of equal status, and the marriage was already set. However, Ye thought that he had always treated her as a brother, so she didn't make her feelings clear. Thus, they went on a blind date, but Liang Jusi was unhappy about it. Taking advantage of his position as Ye's boss, he would cause all sorts of trouble whenever Ye went on a blind date. In the end, the two of them ended up together. At the start of this year, Liang Jusi called off the engagement, and because of this, he was even beaten up by his father. Hearing Shi Yao's words, a hint of a smile surfaced on Leng Wan's face. It was really good. From the naive school days to the present, everyone had a home to return to. It was really good. Seeing Leng Wan smile, Shi Yao stopped nagging and turned to Leng Wan. Wan, can you stop asking about us? What about you? How are you? Even without Leng Wan's reply, Shi Yao could tell that Leng Wan must have been very tired over the years. Coco was her daughter, and she had taken on her surname. She didn't even know who her father was. This was clearly a single-parent family. Shi Yao had a child of her own, so she knew just how tough it was for a mother, from pregnancy to birth, to breastfeeding, and so on. Even she found it hard to have her entire family helping her, acting as a nanny and taking care of her, let alone Leng Wan. Just this thought alone was enough to make Shi Yao's heart ache. Before Leng Wan could speak, she spoke up once more. It must have been hard on you over the past few years, right? It must be hard to raise a child alone, right? Tell me, are you stupid? Chapter 10:13. He. Even though Shi Yao didn't say his name, Leng Wan knew who she was referring to. Her lips moved, wanting to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. You're really a fool. Tell me, if you don't want him as a person, why do you still want his child? Leng Wan didn't say a word. After a moment of silence, Shi Yao spoke up. Wan, have you ever thought about the future? It's not the same as having a father. All these years, he hasn't found a girlfriend either, and he's been waiting for you. After you left, Tian, Ye, and I all hold a grudge against him. When we first met, none of us cared about him. Later on, when we did, we would often criticize him, but he never fell out with us. No matter how you look at it, he thinks that he deserves it. Since you're willing to bear his child, it goes without saying that you have him in your heart as well. Yao. Leng Wan didn't know what she was afraid of, but she suddenly interrupted Shi Yao, not daring to let her continue. Yao, I'm living a good life now. Even though it's tough and tiring to raise a child alone, I've managed to get through the most difficult and tiring times. Kiki is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm getting less and less worried. I really think that my current situation is pretty good. I don't want to think about anything else. Thinking back to how he had mysteriously disappeared from her world 4 years ago, how he had ignored her calls and texts. When she had personally gone to the company to look for him, all she got in return was an excuse that he was on a business trip. A hint of darkness flashed across Leng Wan's eyes. She had always been afraid of all men in the world. When she was at her most extreme, she couldn't even communicate with a man in the most basic way. It was precisely because of this that she put on a different face to women and a different face to men. She believed in love, but she didn't believe that beautiful love would ever appear on her again. It was only when he appeared in her world that she gradually became willing to accept a man, that she was willing to walk out of her past and start a new life. She thought that she would slowly get better, but in the end, the result she received was just her wishful thinking. There are 80,000 Chinese characters in the world, but the word love is the most hurtful. With such thoughts in mind, Leng Wan spoke up once more. I really don't want to change the current situation anymore. Yao, I appreciate your goodwill, but I don't want to put myself in danger anymore. Leng Wan paused for a moment before continuing. Yao, you can meet me, Tian can meet me, Ye can meet me, and even Lin Jiej can meet me, but I don't want to meet him. By the time Lu Benlai returned from his business trip, a week had already passed. When he was on a business trip, he passed by a toy store and saw the toy that Lin Shi had been clamoring to buy but had been out of stock, so he bought it and brought it back for Lin Shi. By the time he arrived at Beijing Airport, it was only 3 in the afternoon. Since he didn't need to return to the company, he didn't have anything else to do. Thus, after the chauffeur picked him up, he noticed the toys he had bought for Lin Shi on the way back to the city, and on a whim, he had the chauffeur change the route to Lin Jie's house. Lu Benlai knew the password to Lin Jie's private elevator, so he made his way up without any obstructions. He pressed the doorbell, and roughly 30 seconds later, footsteps sounded from within. As the door opened, the first person to rush out was a short and adorable little girl. Chapter 10:14. He pressed the doorbell, and roughly 30 seconds later, footsteps sounded from within. The door opened, and an adorable little girl dashed out. The little girl was dressed in a pink princess dress, and her hair was combed into 2 ponytails. She ran up to Lu Benlai before finally stopping to assess him. With just a single glance, Lu Benlai immediately recognized the little girl to be the lost little girl he had met in Ji University back then. But why would she be in Lin Jie and Shi Yao's house? While Lu Benlai was perplexed, little Lin Shi also ran out. Little Lin Shi wasn't a very attentive person in front of Lu Benlai, but when he saw his favorite toy in Lu Benlai's hands, he immediately greeted him obediently, "Hello, Uncle Lu." Lin Shi's childish voice pulled Lu Benlai back to his senses. He bowed down to greet Lin Shi before turning his gaze back to the little girl. For some reason, whenever he saw the little girl, he would feel an inexplicable surge of fatherly love, such that his voice was much gentler and more amiable than when he spoke to Lin Shi. "Do you still remember your uncle?" The little girl nodded silently. Seeing this sight, Lin Shi immediately grew wary. "Uncle Lu, how do you know Kiki?" "Uncle Lu, Kiki's mother has already betrothed her to me." Hearing little Snack's words, Lu Benlai burst into laughter. "Is he afraid that I'll snatch Kiki away from him?" Seeing that Lu Benlai wasn't saying a word, Lin Shi grew agitated. "Uncle Lu, a gentleman doesn't snatch what others like. I just learned these words this morning." "You're not a gentleman, Lu Benlai." Of all the children in the world, Lin Jie's son was the only one who behaved like that. If every child was like that, there would probably be no one who would be willing to bear children anymore. "Lin Shi, Uncle Lu." Seeing that Lin Shi was getting angry, Lu Benlai hurriedly stopped teasing him and said, "I was the one who found her when she got lost and brought her home." After hearing the explanation, Lin Shi immediately calmed down and said, "I'll thank you on Kiki's behalf then." Lu Benlai. Are you being serious with that tone and attitude of a little boyfriend? "Uncle Lu, I didn't expect you to have such a valiant and helpful side to you." Lu Benlai. Are you praising me, or are you mocking me? Like father, like son. In order to shut Lin Shi up, Lu Benlai passed the gift in his hand over to him and said, "This is what you've been looking for. I happened to see it, so I specially brought it back for you." "Thank you, Uncle Lu." When Lin Shi received the gift with both hands, Lin Kiki, who was standing by the side, watched as the gift passed from Lu Benlai's hands to Lin Shi. Then, her large, black eyes turned back to Lu Benlai, and she stared at him expectantly. Judging from her expression, did she think that he had a present too after seeing him give little Snack a present and was waiting for him? Lu Benlai, who didn't know that a little girl would be in Lin Jie's house, was at a loss as to what to do. However, he didn't want to disappoint the little girl, so he reached into his pocket and rummaged through his briefcase. Eventually, he found a piece of chocolate and passed it to the little girl, saying, "This is for you." Chapter 10:15. It was a very soft and gentle touch, but but it made Lu Benlai's heart soften to the extreme. All of a sudden, he felt an urge to hug this little girl. Compared to the two little ones, Lin Jiej appeared at the door a little later. "What are you doing here?" In his hands were two milk bottles, one light blue and the other light pink. Clearly, they were filled with milk for the two little ones. However, what shocked Lu Benlai wasn't the milk bottles in Lin Jiej's hands but the fact that he was wearing a Pikachu suit. If not for his voice, Lu Benlai really wouldn't have been able to tell who the person before him was. Even though Lu Benlai wasn't saying a word, Lin Jiej could tell what he was thinking just by looking at his expression. He didn't want to do this either, but since the two little ones liked him, and Soft Bun was willing to do this for them, he couldn't possibly turn her down. With a milk bottle in hand, Lin Jiej opened the door for Lu Benlai and the two little ones to enter. Lin Jiej first passed the light blue milk bottle to Lin Shi before passing the light pink milk bottle to Coco. Coco was holding a piece of chocolate in her hand, so she took the milk bottle with her arm. She even tilted her head up to Lin Jiej and said in a cute voice, "Thank you, Uncle Pikachu." Lin Jiej used the paw of the Pikachu suit to gently stroke Coco's face, causing her to giggle. Then, he turned to look at his son, only to see that he had tossed the milk bottle to the side and was tearing open the present Lu Benlai had given him. Without any hesitation, he used the paw of the Pikachu suit to give his son a slap. A slap. Lin Shi hurriedly tossed aside his toy and picked up the milk bottle. While drinking the milk, he would lean against Lin Jiej and raise his head from time to time to call out, "Daddy," before talking to Lin Jiej. While Lin Jiej was entertaining his son, he chatted with Lu Benlai. This little girl is Lin Shi's classmate, and her name is Kiki. As Lin Jiej spoke, he shot a glance at Shi Yao, who was currently cutting fruit plates for the two little ones in the dining room. After which, he turned to Lu Benlai and said, "Her mother is away on a business trip, so there's no one to take care of Kiki. As she's close to Lin Shi, Yao Yao brought her back." Lin Jiej intentionally emphasized on the word Yao Yao, but seeing that there wasn't much of a change in Lu Benlai's expression, he couldn't help but recall how Soft Bun had warned him not to tell Lu Benlai about his encounter with Lang Wan. Thus, he could only give Lu Benlai a new reminder: Kiki is called Lang Kiki. "So, she's the Lang Kiki that Snack mentioned to me before." As Lu Benlai spoke, he lowered his head to look at Kiki, only to see that she had dripped milk on her clothes. He quickly picked up a napkin and wiped her collar. Lin Jiej was rendered speechless by Lu Benlai's reply. Unfortunately, Pikachu had concealed his expression, so Lu Benlai couldn't see through his anxiety at all. Clearing his throat, Lin Jiej was just about to say something when Shi Yao walked out of the dining room with a fruit plate in her hands. Frightened, he quickly shut his mouth and lowered his head to talk to Lin Shi. Hugging the milk bottle, Lang Kiki stared fixedly at the scene of Lin Jiej and Lin Shi. "Daddy, can you help me assemble the toy later?" "Daddy, I'm already full. Can I not drink the rest?" "Daddy." Chapter 10:16. Lu Benlai was currently speaking to Lin Jiej, and Shi Yao, who was seated beside Lin Jiej, would occasionally interject. Lang Kiki's daddy was very soft, but the adults in the room instantly fell silent. This was the first time someone had called Lu Benlai daddy, and it wasn't his daughter at that. He was stunned as he stared at Lang Kiki, not knowing how he should react. Lang Kiki raised her head and stared at Lu Benlai for a moment. Seeing that the latter wasn't responding to her, she imitated Lin Shi's tone and called out, "Daddy." "Daddy, Daddy," Lang Kiki's voice grew louder and louder. Lu Benlai felt as if something was stuck in his throat, causing him to choke on his words. His lips moved, and it took him a great deal of effort before he managed to force out a few words. "Kiki, I'm not your father." Lang Kiki only wanted someone to call Lin Shi daddy, and other than Lin Jiej, Lu Benlai was the only other person in the room, so she wanted to call him Daddy, too. Ever since she was young, no one had ever told her what a father was, so she didn't really understand what the words "I'm not your father" meant. However, she could vaguely tell that Lu Benlai was rejecting her. Her eyes reddened, but she still called out in a tender voice, "Daddy, Daddy." Looking at Kiki in such a state, Xiao's eyes reddened in an instant. Indeed, she was still young, and there were many things she didn't understand. But just because she didn't understand didn't mean that she didn't need it. Perhaps she didn't know what a daddy was in the past, so she didn't have any need for one. However, after seeing the interaction between Lin Shi and Lin Jiej, she also wanted a daddy. It was just that she had promised Leng Wan that she wouldn't tell Lu Benlai about their meeting, so there was no way she could tell Lu Benlai that Kiki was his daughter. After all, feelings couldn't be forced. Even if Nguyen didn't want to return to the past, she couldn't just turn around and sell her away, but in the end, Xiao still couldn't bring herself to do it. So, just as Lu Benlai was about to reject Kiki, she spoke up, "Kiki doesn't have a daddy, so you should just respond to her when she calls you daddy." Hearing Xiao's words, Lu Benlai, who was just about to reason with Leng Kiki that she shouldn't call another man daddy so casually, swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. In truth, he really couldn't bring himself to turn down this little girl, but he wasn't her father in the first place, so he couldn't just agree to her request. Hearing Xiao's words, he couldn't help but mutter an "ai" toward Kiki's voice, which was still calling her father. Coco immediately smiled. Recalling how Lin Jiej had fed Lin Shi milk when he didn't want to drink it, she passed the milk bottle in her hand over to Lu Benlai. Lu Benlai didn't really understand what Kiki was trying to say. It was only when Kiki said in a cute voice, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," that he hurriedly took the milk bottle and fed it to her. This was his first time feeding a child milk. He was a little nervous and his movements were stiff, but Coco seemed to be very happy. However, Coco only drank 2 mouthfuls before turning her head away and stretching her arms toward Lu Benlai. Even without Kiki's reminder, Lu Benlai already knew that she wanted him to carry her. He reached out and easily pulled Kiki into his embrace. Chapter 10:17. Lu Benlai wasn't carrying the child, and with a little bun nestled in his embrace, he didn't dare to move at all for fear of startling Kiki. Perhaps Kiki was still a little shy with strangers, but she behaved obediently in Lu Benlai's embrace. However, as time went by, perhaps feeling that she was getting closer to Lu Benlai, Kiki grew bolder and bolder, and she began squirming around in Lu Benlai's embrace. Lu Benlai didn't mind her messing around. Throughout the entire process, he looked at Kiki with a gentle gaze. Every time Kiki was about to fall, he would always be there to protect her. Lu Benlai didn't intend to stay in Lin Jiej's house for too long, but due to Kiki clinging onto him, Xiao decided to ask him to stay for dinner. He also wanted to spend a little more time with Kiki, so he agreed to it. Throughout dinner, Kiki relied heavily on Lu Benlai. She wanted him to feed her, take food from her bowl, and wipe her mouth. Speaking of which, it was strange. Not only did Lu Benlai not find it troublesome, he even took good care of Kiki. From the initial fluster, he eventually became more like a nanny. After dinner, Lu Benlai played with Kiki for a while before Xiao took Kiki to the bathroom. When she came out, Kiki was dressed in a set of pink pajamas. Her soft hair hung loosely behind her back, making her look like a doll. It was about time for the 2 children to go to sleep, but Kiki refused to do so. She insisted on pestering Lu Benlai to tell her a story. Lu Benlai hugged her tirelessly as he read Snow White over and over again. Lu Benlai had no idea how long he had been reading the story, but when his mouth went dry, he lowered his head and saw that Kiki had already fallen asleep in his embrace. The little girl's face was flushed red from her sleep, making her look adorable. As Lu Benlai continued reading, he was so entranced that he didn't even realize that a warm smile had curled up on his lips. Lu Benlai was a little reluctant to let go of Kiki, so he sat quietly in her embrace for a long while. It was only when Shuyao came over to check if Kiki had fallen asleep that he reluctantly placed her on the crib and carefully covered her with a blanket before getting up to leave the bedroom. It was already getting late, so Lu Benlai didn't stay any longer. After bidding farewell to Lin Jiej and Shuyao, he quickly took his leave. A second after Lu Benlai left the room, Shuyao immediately picked up her phone and called Leng Wan, who had called her several times tonight, but she didn't pick up. The call was picked up immediately. After confirming that everything was fine, Leng Wan finally heaved a sigh of relief. Shuyao chatted with Leng Wan for a while longer, and before Leng Wan hung up the call, Shuyao hesitated for a moment before mentioning Lu Benlai. Wan, he came to our house today, and he bumped into Kiki. On the other end of the phone, Leng Wan fell silent. Kiki probably saw that Snack had a father, so she wanted a father too, so she called him Daddy. He was quite patient, and he played with Kiki for a very long time. He was the one who coaxed Kiki to sleep at night. The reason why I didn't pick up your call back then was because he was around. Yao, it's getting late, you should rest early, I still have a meeting tomorrow morning. Chapter 10:18. Holding on to her phone, Shuyao leaned against the headboard and fell into deep thought for a moment. Eventually, she opened up her phone's photo gallery and selected a few photos she had taken of Lu Benlai accompanying Kiki before sending them over to Leng Wan's WeChat. After sending the photos, Shuyao didn't say anything, and Leng Wan didn't reply either. However, Shuyao knew that Leng Wan would definitely see them. The photos she had sent over were hilariously bright, and Leng Wan looked even happier than usual. Shuyao admitted that she had done it on purpose. After all, she was a mother, and she understood a mother's heart better than anyone else. Leng Wan would surely want her daughter to be happier, and she hoped that Leng Wan's unshakable resistance toward Lu Benlai would waver a little. Speaking of which, Lu Benlai had never thought that a 3-year-old girl would leave such a deep impression on him. For an entire week, he would think of her whenever his mind wandered off. But in the end, she wasn't his daughter. No matter how much he thought about her, he couldn't bring her home and raise her. Lu Benlai knew very well that he wouldn't have much interaction with that little girl in the future. Or rather, after parting ways at Lin Jiej's place, there was a good chance that he would no longer have any contact with that little girl. But no matter how aware he was of that fact, he still did quite a few things that bewitched him. When he went to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities, he saw beautiful women's clothing hanging in the window of the mall above and even bought a few sets. While he was browsing the internet in boredom at work, he even went to look at the little girl's plush toys. In the blink of an eye, it was the weekend again. Lu Benlai caught a slight cold, so he stayed at home to catch up on his sleep. He ate takeaway for dinner, and after filling his stomach, he took out some medicine and gulped it down before falling into a deep sleep once more. After sleeping for a long time, he was awoken by his phone ringing. He took a look at the caller ID and saw that it was, ? It was Keek's mother's phone number. Back then, when he received the cufflinks, he had thought of deleting the little girl's mother's phone number, but he felt that something was amiss. After some thought, he decided to save it instead. Since he didn't know the other party's name, he simply typed a ? But why was the little girl's mother calling him? Lu Benlai was perplexed, but he still picked up the call. It wasn't the little girl's mother's voice but the little girl's. Hello. Would you like to order takeout? Hearing the serious voice of the little girl, Lu Benlai's vexed mood suddenly lightened up. The little girl was probably playing games by herself, playing house with her mother's phone, and accidentally called him. With such a thought in mind, Lu Benlai played along with Kiki and said, yes, Kiki. I want to order takeout. May I know what kind of takeout you can sell to me? There was no sound from the other side of the phone. After about 10 seconds, Coco seemed to have recognized him from his voice. She suddenly stopped playing the food delivery game and started calling out, "Daddy, Daddy, Kiki, what are you yelling about?" As soon as the voice came from Coco's side, Lu Benlai felt as if someone had smashed a bat into his head, pinning him to the bed. "Kiki, it's your fault for tapping on my phone again." Chapter 10:19. Kiki, who told you to use Mommy's phone again, Kiki? Mommy, Lu Benlai felt as if his brain had crashed, and he couldn't think at all. The conversation on the other end of the phone was still going on. Kiki, who was being lectured, began to whine coquettishly, "Mommy is beautiful, Mommy is good. Mommy. Daddy. Daddy, Kiki, that's a phone, not Daddy. If you want to play games again, use your toy phone instead of Mommy's phone." Through the phone, Lu Benlai could hear the sound of approaching footsteps. He was clearly separated from the other party by an internet connection, but Lu Benlai's heart still skipped a beat along with the approaching footsteps. "Kiki, give your phone to Mommy." "No, I want Daddy, Daddy, Kiki." Due to Kiki's disobedience, the other party's tone became much harsher. "Daddy." Following Kiki's aggrieved voice, the other party spoke up once more, "Kiki, who did you call?" Perhaps sensing that Kiki had made the call, the other party took the phone away. Without the phone, Kiki burst into tears, but the other party didn't show any signs of coaxing Kiki. She didn't speak, and he didn't speak either. Other than Kiki's sobs, there was no other sound. After an unknown period of time, Lu Benlai finally recovered from his daze. His mouth opened and closed, and as if afraid that everything was just a dream, his voice became so soft that it seemed as if he was muttering, "Nuan. Nuan." As those two words left his mouth, his fingers, which were holding onto the phone, began to tremble violently. She still didn't speak. He spoke again impatiently, and this time, his voice trembled even more intensely, "Nuan, Nuan, Nuan." He called out her name a second time, but before he could finish, the call was cut off. Hearing the busy tone on the other end of the phone, he was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly dialed the number back. However, as soon as the call connected, the call was cut off. He tried calling again, but the reply he got was, "Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently busy." He knew that she must have blacklisted his number. Unwilling to give up, he tried calling again, but the same thing still didn't happen. Finally, he tossed the phone to the side. There was no way he could be mistaken. The person who had spoken earlier was definitely Leng Wan. Because that voice was all too familiar to him. How many times had he dreamed of her voice in the middle of the night? She told Kiki that she was Kiki's mother. Leng Kiki. Leng Wan, her mother went on a business trip, so there was no one to take care of Kiki. Since she and Lin Shi are close, Yao Yao brought her back. Kuku is called Leng Ku. The words that Lin Jiej had told him the other day suddenly flashed across his mind. As it turned out, Lin Jiej had already been hinting to him that day. He must have had a screw loose in his head for not noticing the other party's intentions. Yes, did he even need to think about it? Lin Jiej had intentionally emphasized on the word Yao Yao to show that Kiki was related to Shi Yao. Kiki's surname was Leng, and of the people who were related to Shi Yao, the only one with the surname Leng was Leng Wan. So, if Kiki was Leng Wan's child, then Kiki's father. Chapter 10:20. Coco was only a little over 3 years old, which meant that she was 4 months younger than Little Snack. On the night that he slept with her, Little Snack had been in his mother's womb for 4 months. The timing was definitely correct. With such thoughts in mind, Lu Benlai tossed aside his blanket and rushed into the changing room. It didn't take him long to change into a new set of clothes, grab his phone and car keys from the bed, and rush out of the house. The journey from where he lived to Lin Jiej's house should have taken around 20 minutes, but it only took him 13 minutes to reach the parking lot below Lin Jiej's house. Taking the elevator up, he didn't even press the doorbell. Instead, he stretched out his hand and began knocking on the door. Roughly 10 seconds later, a response sounded from behind the door, but to him, every second felt incomparably long. He continued knocking on the door anxiously. Hurried footsteps sounded from the doorway, and the door was pulled open. Today, Lin Jiej was no longer a Pikachu but a big yellow duck, and the big yellow duck was even clutching a diaper in its claws. Faced with such a comical sight, Lu Benlai didn't have the slightest hint of admiration or mockery. Instead, he stared at the duck head on Lin Jiej's head and went straight to the point. "You and Shiryao met her, didn't you?" "What?" Lin Jiej couldn't figure out who the sheath Lu Benlai was referring to was, so he asked in bewilderment. "Say, you and Shiryao met her a long time ago, didn't you? You knew that Leng Yuan was in Beijing, so you contacted her, didn't you? It wasn't just the two of you. Jiang Yu, He Tian, and old Xia also met her, didn't you? While I was away on a business trip, the two of you had frequent gatherings with her, right?" Lin Jiej finally recovered from his daze, but before he could say anything, Shiryao, who had heard the loud knocking on the door, had already come out to see what was going on. She spoke up first. "How did you know?" Lin Jiej was also about to ask the same question, but hearing Shiryao's voice, he replied without any hesitation, Yao, I didn't say that." Lu Benlai, did he have to have such a strong desire to live? To avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings, Lu Benlai quickly explained everything that had happened. "I met Kiki before I met her at your place. She was alone back then, and she got lost. I was the one who brought her home, and Kiki grabbed my cufflinks. Her mother contacted me through a message." At this point, Lu Benlai suddenly recalled the day when he received a call from Coco's mother at the airport. As soon as he opened his mouth, she went completely silent. So, she recognized him. She knew who he was, so she hung up the phone. No wonder that phone call made him feel inexplicably uneasy. It was her call, no wonder. She knew about me long ago, what? Noticing that Lu Benlai's words didn't make sense at all, Lin Jiej couldn't help but interject. Recovering from his daze, Lu Benlai continued speaking. "So, Kiki's mother has my number. Tonight, when Kiki was playing games, she took out her mother's phone and called me, and I heard her talking. Chapter 10:21. At this point, Shiryao knew that even if she didn't say anything, she wouldn't be able to hide it from Lu Benlai. Perhaps, this was fate. Regardless of whether Leng Yuan wanted to meet Lu Benlai or not, the heavens were bent on their reunion. Shiryao nodded lightly in response to Lu Benlai's words. Even though Shiryao didn't say a word, Lu Benlai's heart was still beating furiously. Kiki was really his daughter. That short and adorable little girl whom he wished he could bring home to raise was actually his daughter. The daughter that Leng Yuan gave birth to for him. Ever since she left, he had been waiting for their next meeting. He had imagined countless scenarios in which they would meet again, but never could he have imagined that she would appear in his life once more, and with a daughter at that. From the moment she left him to learning that she was pregnant to the moment she decided to give birth to the child, the 10 months of pregnancy, the near-death experience of giving birth, and finally the confinement period to raise his daughter to this age. It took a total of 4 years. 4 years. How did she manage to survive these 4 years alone? 4 years ago, they parted ways just like that. He knew that he wasn't good enough, but he also knew that he wasn't that important to her. He had always felt that he was the one who had given his all to their relationship. In fact, he had even thought that he was the one who had been waiting for her for the past 4 years. But she actually gave birth to a child for him. Why would she do that? She had always been indifferent toward him. She wouldn't let him touch her, and she wouldn't say anything intimate to him. In fact, she even had an ex. With such thoughts in mind, Lu Benlai turned around to leave to look for Ling Yuan. But barely after he pressed the button for the elevator, Shi Yao suddenly called out to him, "Lu Benlai." Lu Benlai turned around. Shi Yao pondered for a moment before saying, "Actually, I've mentioned you to Ling Yuan before, but she was very against it. It's not that we don't want to tell you, it's just that she didn't want to talk to us. She said that she's doing fine at the moment, and she doesn't want to think about anything else. So, I'm thinking that if you look for her, she might not want to have anything to do with you. If you really like her, you should be more tolerant of her and give her more time and space. Don't force her too much." Lu Benlai hesitated for a moment before nodding his head and entering the elevator. After returning to the car, he sat in a daze for a moment before starting the car and heading to Ling Yuan's neighborhood. In just a short month, Lin Jie and Qin Ting had already met 10 times. Initially, whenever Lin Jie and Qin Ting met, Xie Shangzhou would be the one in charge of escorting them. There were a couple of times when they went out to play, and Xie Shangzhou would tag along, so he could see the interaction between Lin Jie and Qin Ting from the car. Every time Lin Jie finished her meeting with Qin Ting, she would tell Xie Shangzhou what she and Qin Ting talked about and how far they had progressed. Xie Shangzhou had always thought that he was able to handle it, but he soon realized that he had overestimated himself. As Lin Jie and Qin Ting got along better and better, the number of times he lost control of himself also increased. For example, there were times when he heard Lin Jie talking about Qin Ting while driving, and he would suddenly step on the brakes. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.